When he heard Yang Jiabao's words and touched her gaze that was filled with contempt, He Xiaoping felt as if 10,000 arrows had pierced his heart. It was not only because he lost to Zhou Hao in this battle of love, but also because of Yang Jiabao's attitude towards him. Ever since He Xiaoping became sensible, there had never been a woman who looked at him with such contempt. Since he was young, he had the title of a prodigy. Along the way, he had made people look at him with his outstanding results. Even getting into Peking University was a matter of course. In addition, he was indeed talented. From the beginning of middle school, he had been a fan of many people. Hence, many a time, in his eyes, women were just things that he could take and take as he pleased. It was precisely because of this that he became even more infatuated with Yang Jiabao, because he could not get what he wanted. It was always the best. At this moment, Yang Jiabao's gaze towards him was very similar to the gaze he used to look at those girls who admired him. However, He Xiaoping still had some dignity in the end. He was not willing to show it to others as a loser. He also did not want to be like those male characters in love dramas who cried to death in order to save a woman. He took a deep breath, then looked straight at Yang Jiabao and said in a deep voice, "Jiabao, if you remove the shackles between the teacher and the student, how can I have the opportunity to compete with Zhou Hao for you?" Yang Jiabao saw that He Xiaoping had regained his fighting spirit in the blink of an eye. She was also very surprised in her heart, thinking that this guy was quite promising. Although in her heart, He Xiaoping could never compare to Zhou Hao. And even if He Xiaoping was really more outstanding than Zhou Hao, Yang Jiabao could not possibly fall in love with him. But Yang Jiabao still wanted to dampen this guy's spirit, so she smiled and said, "If you can earn 100 million within a year, humph, you can try." Money? He Xiaoping suddenly let out a cold laugh. Can money reflect a man's ability? He had studied economics for more than 10 years, but had never thought of going into the sea to do business. This was because he looked down on those businessmen who reeked of money from the bottom of his heart. He had always prided himself as an intellectual and did not want that money to tarnish his reputation. Now that he saw Yang Jiabao also used money to measure others, he felt a trace of disappointment in his heart. At the same time, he also felt sick that he had finally regained some dignity because this woman in front of him was just a common person among the common people. Yang Jiabao said with a smile, "A man's talent might not be reflected in the money he has, but to a certain extent, money can reflect whether a man has the ability or not." In fact, she had already let He Xiaoping start from the aspect that he was best at. If He Xiaoping were to fight Zhou Hao, he was afraid that he would not even know how he would die. "So you are just like those vain women. You are so vulgar and impatient." He Xiaoping sneered. Yang Jiabao also did not bother to argue, but she still smiled. "Whatever you say. Just take it that I am too vulgar to endure. Then don't pester me anymore in the future." After that, Yang Jiabao turned around and wanted to leave. He Xiaoping hurriedly stopped her. "Wait, you said 100 million. Is it RMB or USD? It's up to you." Yang Jiabao did not turn her head. She only said one sentence before she opened the door and left. He Xiaoping clenched his fists. His eyes were burning with fighting spirit. This time, it was not just for Yang Jiabao. He also wanted to prove to everyone that he was capable and that he wanted to regain his dignity. After returning, Yang Jiabao did not tell anyone about her conversation with He Xiaoping. In her heart, He Xiaoping was just an insignificant existence. After a full day of lessons, Quan Ying clamored to go to Yang Jiabao and Zhou Hao's mansion to play. Coincidentally, Yang Jiabao just had a means of transportation, so she brought them and Lu Weidong to play. It was not the first time Zhong Guifeng and Quan Ying came, but it was the first time Lu Weidong followed Zhong Guifeng. When he saw the luxurious and spacious compound mansion, his mouth had not closed ever since he entered. Because the area of the mansion that Zhou Hao gave Yang Jiabao was very large, therefore, unless Zhou Hao came back or Yang Jiabao wanted to have a small party with Quan Ying and the rest, Yang Jiabao rarely came back to live. She would rather stay in the dormitory with Zhong Guifeng and the others. Even though there were many wealthy families in the school, Yang Jiabao did not want to be too distant from the group. Zhou Hao hasn't returned yet. Quan Ying asked Yang Jiabao. He said he was going to have a business meeting with someone from China this morning. He should be busy right now. Lu Weidong said in surprise. What exactly does Zhou Hao do? I don't think he's older than us. Why is he so rich? What made Yang Jiabao the most proud of Zhou Hao, besides his unfathomable martial arts, was that Zhou Hao did not rely on the protection of his family. He relied on his own efforts to build his own business. Now, it was such a big family business. She smiled at Lu Weidong and said, Zhou Hao opened his own investment company. I am not clear about it. I only know that his company's business is not bad. Lu Weidong was also an aspiring young man. When he saw the mansion that Zhou Hao gave young Jiabao today, he did not feel inferior. Instead, he used it as motivation. He decided in his heart that he must let Zhong Guifeng live in such a house in the future. At this time, Zhou Hao called back. He heard from young Jiabao that Zhong Guifeng and the others were also here, so he suggested to buy some vegetables and cook together. Young Jiabao immediately agreed happily. Not long after, Zhou Hao bought a lot of vegetables. The kitchen in the room was very spacious, so when Quan Ying, Zhong Guifeng, and the others came over to help with the cooking, it did not seem crowded. The people who cooked together were also very happy. Among the crowd, the one with the best cooking skills was Zhou Hao, followed by Zhong Guifeng and Lu Weidong. Zhong Guifeng and Lu Weidong came from a farmer's home. Cooking was an essential skill, and the worst was Yang Jiabao and Quan Ying, the two heiresses. Yang Jiabao could still handle a simple breakfast like sausages and eggs, but now, she and Quan Ying were more and more helpful. Zhong Guifeng was still angry. She knocked on their heads with the spoon and chased them out of the kitchen. Finally, when Zhou Hao, Zhong Guifeng, and the others made a table of good dishes, Yang Jiabao and all the talented people came over to enjoy the fruits of their labor. As they were all young people, everyone ate and chatted happily at the table. After the meal, while Zhou Hao and Lu Weidong were chatting, Quan Ying and Zhong Guifeng were also in the master's room chatting with young Jiabao. Quan Ying said, "Jiabao, let me tell you, you should be smiling even in your dreams. Your Zhou Hao is so outstanding. Guifeng and I are jealous of you." "What's there to be jealous of? That guy is so fickle." Although young Jiabao was scolding Zhou Hao, her face was full of smiles. Quan Ying snorted and said, "You should be satisfied. Zhou Hao is not only talented, he is also handsome, and he is rich. The most important thing is to be good to you. It is very difficult to find such an outstanding boy now. According to me, if it is a boy like Zhou Hao, I will acknowledge him even if he has other women. It's rare that he can make a woman have 6 orgasms in one night. I heard. Many women in the world have never experienced orgasms in their entire lives." Yang Jiabao pointed her jade finger at Quan Ying's forehead and scolded, "You lustful woman is really useless." However, Yang Jiabao only said it out loud. She knew that she was not the only woman beside Zhou Hao, but after so many things, she also knew that she would not be able to leave Zhou Hao for the rest of her life, so she just turned a blind eye to it. After sending Quan Ying and the others back to school, Yang Jiabao once again enjoyed the two people's world with Zhou Hao. She wanted to ask Zhou Hao how the conversation with the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce was going today, but seeing Zhou Hao's smiling face, she knew that it would be very smooth. She was too lazy to ask, and just used a cotton stick to help Zhou Hao dig his ears after he took a shower. Since she had decided to be Zhou Hao's woman for the rest of her life, Yang Jiabao would use Zhou Hao's wife's identity to ask her to be considerate of Zhou Hao. Every time, Zhou Hao would be the first to be considerate. Unconsciously, her former mistress's pampered attitude had changed a lot because of Zhou Hao. She now had the potential to be a good wife and a good mother. Zhou Hao rested his head on Yang Jiabao's soft legs and enjoyed her gentleness. He smiled and said, "Tomorrow I want to meet a singer with potential. Can you accompany me?"
Yes.
Yang Jiabao would not have taken a leave of absence for no reason. This was also in order to better run for the next student council president. But in front of Zhou Hao, these were nothing. The person Zhou Hao wanted to meet was naturally Zhou Jielin, who had stayed in Beijing. A while ago, Wang Zhongjuan, who had come to Beijing to discuss cooperation matters with the central TV station, had coincidentally found Zhou Jielin, whom Zhou Hao had mentioned before. He had immediately informed the headquarters of North Pole Star. Actually, Zhou Jielin had not come to Beijing to travel. He had come with Wu Zongxian. During the singing competition, although Zhou Jielin had failed, he had been chosen by Wu Zongxian and had become a member of his company's production team. Wu Zongxian had also heard of the recently popular North Pole Star, because Liang Xiaobing's national language album was also selling very well in Taiwan. The smart Wang Zhong did not tell Wu Zongxian about Zhou Hao looking for Zhou Jielin before military matters, so when Wu Zongxian received Wang Zhongjuan's invitation, he thought that Wang Zhongjuan wanted to cooperate with his company, so he obediently stayed in Beijing. It had been a week in Beijing. Although all the food and accommodation were reserved by Wang Zhongjuan, Wu Zongxian was still a little depressed because Wang Zhongjuan did not discuss proper business with him for a long time. He only occasionally took him to tour Beijing. Now that he suddenly heard Wang Zhongjuan say that the big boss of North Pole Star was going to meet him, Wu Zongxian was very excited. Both parties agreed to meet in the business room of the Wang Mansion's Jing Hotel. When Zhou Hao saw Zhou Jielin, who was quietly standing behind Wu Zongxian, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This is the future superstar of the Heavenly King. I didn't expect him to be so silly when he was young. Actually, if Jay wasn't a star, and the halos on his body went off one by one. Just to look at him as a normal person, it could be described as dumb. Zhou Hao found it funny when he thought about how this future superstar would only be an ordinary person before he became famous. He even thought that if he dug Zhou Jieluan out of Wu Zongxian's hands and hid him, would there still be a popular Chairman Zhou in the future? He gently shook his head to get rid of the distracting thoughts in his heart. Zhou Hao would not do such a boring thing. Although he would not look up to those superstars, Zhou Jieluan was full of commercial value to him. While Zhou Hao was looking at Zhou Jieluan, Wu Zongxian was also looking at Zhou Hao. He had never thought that the big boss behind the North Pole Star and the person who could drive a genius like Wang Zhongjuan, Wang Zhonglei, was actually this young man in front of him. In his imagination, Zhou Hao should be a mature man who had lived for a long time. Outside of Zhou Hao, Yang Jiabao, who accompanied Zhou Hao, also gave Wu Zongxian a lot of experience. He had also been in the entertainment circle of Taiwan for many years. What kind of female star had he not seen before? But no one could compare to Yang Jiabao. Even the current #1 beauty in Taiwan, Xiao Qinluo, could not compare to Yang Jiabao. Although he had known Wu Zongxian for a long time, Zhou Hao still shook hands with Wu Zongxian after Wang Zhongjuan introduced him. After he sat down, Wu Zongxian, who had some experience with socializing, was about to say some flattering words to Zhou Hao, the big boss. However, he saw Zhou Hao looking at him with a smile. As if he had seen through his thoughts, Wu Zongxian felt that he had prepared those words for a long time. He was actually unable to say a single word. Brother Xian is the king of variety in Taiwan. I have admired you for a long time. Zhou Hao wasn't lying. In his previous life, he liked Wu Zongxian a lot. Of course, he liked his hosting style. He also liked that he did not take vulgarities as shame and did not pretend to be fake. The image of a true villain was much better than those hypocritical hypocrites. When Wu Zongxian heard Zhou Hao call him Taiwan's variety king, he was really flattered. Now, although he relied on the hosting of variety shows to gradually climb to the peak of his personal career and also had his own company, he was still a distance away from Heavenly King. Furthermore, he could feel that Zhou Hao's words were not perfunctory or hypocritical, but really had some appreciation. So he immediately felt that he was much closer to Zhou Hao, and even had the feeling of meeting someone close to him. He smiled and said, "Mr. Zhou, you flatter me. You really flatter me. Is your wife all right?" Zhou Hao asked. Wu Zongxian was stunned. He subconsciously wanted to say that he was not married yet, but when he saw the smile on Zhou Hao's face that seemed to know everything, he smiled bitterly and said, "Mr. Zhou is indeed powerful. She is living very well." Similar to Liu Daihua, the existence of Wu Zongxian's wife was also concealed by him for many years. But in the end, Wu Zongxian could also give him the title of wife, and he treated his children very well. Just this point, Zhou Hao felt that Wu Zongxian was not a bad man. As for Wu Zongxian's many years of scandal, Zhou Hao did not look down on it. On the contrary, he had a feeling that they were on the same boat. "All right, let's get down to business." Zhou Hao smiled and said, "I believe that Brother Xian has a certain understanding of the business of our Northern Pole Star, right?" Wu Zongxian hurriedly nodded. Before he saw Zhou Hao, he had done his homework. "I know that your company's business covers a very wide range. Yes, it mainly focuses on Galaxy Satellite TV. At the same time, it also focuses on the development of movies, records, and other public media industries. Hehe, your company's Liang Xiaobing Liang's album is selling very well in our Taiwan. It has attracted the attention of many of our local record companies." Zhou Hao smiled and said, "All right. If I say that your company will be our company's distributor in Taiwan, will you agree?" "Is distributor?" Wu Zongxian could not believe his ears. Compared to the other recording companies in Taiwan, his company was just a small company. For example, Liang Xiaobing's album was released through Taiwan's Shanghua Records Company. You should be very familiar with the situation and market in Taiwan, and your connections are also very wide. Zhou Hao smiled and asked him, "How is it? Brother Xian, do you want to work with our company?" Actually, the reason Zhou Hao wanted to leave Taiwan's Shanghua Records Company and work with Wu Zongxian was not because he wanted Wu Zongxian to have a wide network in Taiwan's entertainment industry. It was also because the Shanghua Records Company relied on their gang background to threaten the records that would be sent to Taiwan in the future to be sold by them. Otherwise, they would not be able to publish in Taiwan, not even giving face to Xian and the Alliance. Originally, the Shanghua Records Company was very powerful and was a very good partner. Moreover, even if they were allowed to represent the business of Northern Pole Star in Taiwan, it would not be a problem. However, Zhou Hao hated being coerced and hated the arrogant attitude of Shanghua Records Company, which said, "I have the final say in Taiwan." Wu Zongxian, like many other celebrities in Taiwan, was closely related to gangs. Zhou Hao knew that the gangs behind Wu Zongxian and the gangs in Shanghua Records were quite powerful and hostile. Therefore, Zhou Hao decided to work with Wu Zongxian instead. He was also angry with the Shanghua Records company. Zhou Hao even suspected that Wu Zongxian was the one who got revenge from the gang in his previous life, and whether it was because he offended Shanghua Records company. Zhou Hao had no interest in interfering with the Taiwan underworld. Taiwan's underworld was much more savage than those in Hong Kong and China. They had even infiltrated the political world like some Western countries. There was often a big fight in Taiwan's parliament because the members of the parliament were the bosses of gangs. When there was a disagreement, they would naturally start fighting, causing the Taiwan political scene to become a place where hooligans competed with each other. How could Wu Zongxian know the inside story? North Pole Star was now the most famous media company on the continent. Being able to cooperate with them was not only beneficial to his development in Taiwan, but it could also lay a solid foundation for him to enter the continent in the future. Therefore, Wu Zongxian could not wait to see Zhou Hao cooperate with him. He hurriedly nodded his head in agreement. At this time, Zhou Hao glanced at the silent Zhou Jielin behind Wu Zongxian, and then said to Wu Zongxian with a smile, "Brother Xian, I think this young man is very suitable for me. I wonder if you can cut off your love and let him transfer to our company." In fact, Zhou Hao was not older than Zhou Jielin. It was not appropriate to call him young man. However, in the eyes of Wu Zongxian and Wang Zhongjuan, with Zhou Hao's current status, calling Zhou Jielin young man was still a compliment. When Wu Zongxian heard this, he was stunned. He never thought that Zhou Hao would pay attention to Zhou Jielin. Originally, he brought Zhou Jielin here just to broaden his horizons, but now, it actually attracted the attention of Zhou Hao, the wealthy man. Zhou Jielin was still like a piece of undeveloped jade. He didn't reveal any outstanding talent. Previously, Wu Zongxian recommended the songs he wrote to Liu Dehua and Zhang Huimei, but they were not accepted. Hence, in Wu Zongxian's heart, Zhou Jielin's status was not that important. Furthermore, to be able to hug such a big tree like Zhou Hao, sacrificing Zhou Jielin was nothing. Therefore, Wu Zongxian very sensibly said, being able to obtain Mr. Zhou's appreciation is also his opportunity. He turned to look at Zhou Jielin. "Jielin, what do you mean? You have to know that Mr. Zhou's North Pole Star is much larger than my company. If you go over to his side, you will definitely have great achievements in the future." However, Zhou Jielin's face showed hesitation. Zhou Hao did not force him and patiently waited for his reply. On the other hand, Wu Zongxian was very anxious. He was afraid that if Zhou Jielin rejected Zhou Hao, his cooperation with Zhou Hao would not be so smooth. After a while, Zhou Jielin raised his head and looked at Zhou Hao. "I can join your company, but I have a very good friend who is also in Brother Xian's company. I want you to invite him over." He felt that his request might be a bit too much. He immediately added, "Don't worry, his talent is also very good." Zhou Hao smiled and looked at Wu Zongxian. Wu Zongxian immediately said, "He is talking about an employee in my company called Fang Wanshan, who wrote some lyrics." So it was Fang Wanshan, Zhou Hao thought. Perhaps Zhou Jielin and Fang Wanshan were fated partners, but to Zhou Hao, it was undoubtedly a good deal to buy one off one. However, he did not show anything on his face. He just smiled at Zhou Jielin and said, "Since you respect him so much, then let him come along. But from now on, you will live in Zhujiang." Hehe, the climate in Zhujiang and Taiwan is not much different. Besides, our country is much wider than Taiwan. I believe you will get used to it soon. Wu Zongxian heard Zhou Hao's words that seemed to be looking down on Taiwan. He wanted to argue with Zhou Hao, but after thinking for a while, he held back. Zhou Hao could naturally see Wu Zongxian's reaction, but he did not take it to heart, nor did he have any interest in discussing the ownership of Taiwan with Wu Zongxian. These matters were meaningless. After Wu Zongxian left, Zhou Jielin, who had already turned to the North Pole Star, stayed behind. Facing Zhou Hao and Wang Zhongjuan, he, who was innately a little introverted, felt that there were 10 branches of anxiety in his heart. He didn't know how Zhou Hao would treat him. He heard Zhou Hao say, "Although I think highly of you, if I support you immediately, it will be hard for the people in the company to be convinced. Also, your ability is not clear yet. How about this? You first do the recording production with the people in the company and accumulate more experience. As for the salary, let's set it at 5,000 renminbi per month." Zhou Jielin nodded. During his time in Beijing, he knew that 5,000 renminbi per month was already very good. As for the artistes in the entertainment industry, during the early stages of their debut, many of them did not have a fixed monthly salary and their lives were very tough. Zhou Hao had indeed given Zhou Jielin high expectations, but he also knew how to promote and suppress him first. Therefore, he wanted to hone Zhou Jelen first, so that he would not be insufferably arrogant when he became famous in the future. To be honest, Zhou was also an ambitious young man who had dreams and worked hard for them, and once upon a time, he also thought that as long as he had dreams, everything in the world wouldn't be difficult anymore. And after meeting a wall in society, he finally understood that it was useless to have hot blood. He also understood that many people started from the bottom before they realized their dreams. So at this time, Zhou Hao only asked him to make some records behind the scenes. He did not feel discouraged. Instead, he thought that since Zhou Hao dug him out from Wu Zongxian, he must have extraordinary value. After that, Wang Zhongjuan asked his assistant to send Zhou Jelen away first. Zhou Hao said to Wang Zhongjuan, "The middle troops, this Zhou Jelen, you go and beat him first. Give him a chance after you have ground his edges and corners." Wang Zhongjuan looked at Zhou Hao and said, "Boss, there are some things I don't know if I should tell him. I have also looked at the things that Zhou Jelen wrote. It is very different from our mainstream music. If we raise him up, will there really be a market? You won't believe me even if I tell you right now. Let's wait for the truth to come out in the future," Zhou Hao said with a smile. Wang Zhongjuan also knew that once Zhou Hao made a decision, no one could stop him, so he could only agree. At this time, someone knocked on the door of the business room. Wang Zhongjuan thought it was the hotel's customer service and asked curiously, "Could it be someone from the hotel? Strange, I didn't order anything." Zhou Hao, however, heard the person outside the door breathe deeply. It was a person with profound inner energy. However, his intuition told him that those people were not hostile to him. They seemed to be old acquaintances. So he walked straight to the door and opened it. He saw a man and a woman standing outside the door. Zhou Hao was stunned when he saw the two of them. The man and the woman were Big Boss and Han Mei from the First Army, as well as Fourth Boss and Li Shuihan. Mr. Han Mei's face was still wearing a cool smile, and there was an air of magnanimity about him. Li Shuihan's face was as cold as always, and she had a cold and aloof expression. When she saw Zhou Hao, she slightly curled her lips, but she didn't know what it meant. Zhou Hao was the first to speak. "Big Boss? Why are you here? Are you looking for me?" Zhou Hao wasn't surprised that Big Boss and the others were here to find him. After all, the intelligence network of the First Army was amazing. He deliberately avoided Li Shuihan, which made her angry. She could not help but snort. "Who else can I find if not you?" Zhou Hao narrowed his eyes and glanced at her. He snorted and said, "This is strange. I did not break the law, and I did not break the law. Why did you look for me?" After a pause, he looked at Big Boss fiercely. He also restrained the improper expression on his face and asked, "Big Boss, did you find that man?" "I'm sorry, Zhou Hao. We don't have any news about the man you asked us to find yet." Big Boss said apologetically, "We also feel strange. With our intelligence network, and that guy is just an ordinary person, it is really strange that there is no trace of him until now. But don't worry. We promised you that we would find him, so we will definitely not go back on our word." Zhou Hao was also very disappointed when he heard this. He said, "Then, Big Boss, you came for Indonesia, right?" Big Boss nodded. "We already know about your plan against Indonesia, and the three chiefs also agreed to let our First Army cooperate with that plan. That's why we came here to discuss the specifics with you." "Yes, that's not a problem." Zhou Hao naturally would not refuse. Since it was a matter of national secrets, he let Wang Zhongjuan leave first. As for Yang Jiabao, she was Zhou Hao's woman, so Zhou Hao naturally didn't need to avoid her. But this time, we still need some help. It just so happens that we are going to visit that person. If you don't mind, then come with us." Big Boss said to Zhou Hao. Li Shuihan added indifferently, "If you are afraid, you can choose not to come." Yang Jiabao could tell that Li Shuihan did not have a good impression of Zhou Hao. When she saw this woman who had a better appearance and temperament than her, Yang Jiabao thought that it was Zhou Hao who provoked her outside. After seeing that she did not like Zhou Hao, she was relieved. And Zhou Hao was the most important person in Yang Jiabao's heart. Naturally, she could not tolerate Li Shuihan's disrespect towards Zhou Hao. Therefore, without waiting for Zhou Hao to speak, she coldly said to Li Shuihan, "Who's afraid? Go, go." Li Shuihan narrowed her eyes and sized Yang Jiabao up and down. Yang Jiabao was also not afraid. She raised her head to meet her gaze and did not show any signs of weakness. Seeing this, Zhou Hao could only smile bitterly and shake his head. What surprised Zhou Hao was that Big Boss was actually very curious about Yang Jiabao. After getting into the car of First Army, Big Boss kept asking Yang Jiabao, "Little girl, your name is Yang Jiabao, right? What is your relationship with Zhou Hao?" This question was so direct. If it was someone else, Yang Jiabao would not be bothered to answer it. However, she saw that Big Boss had an extraordinary bearing. Every movement of his could give people an invisible pressure. Clearly, he was an unfathomable expert. Furthermore, Zhou Hao did not reject Big Boss, so Yang Jiabao said gently and respectfully, "Hello, senior. I am Zhou Hao's girlfriend." "Girlfriend? Hee. Good, good." Big Boss smiled and said, "You are a student of Beijing University, right? Do you have any brothers and sisters in your family? What kind of business does your family do?" "I have an elder brother above me. My family mainly runs hotels and produces car parts." Yang Jiabao said, "I wonder if Senior has heard of the Guangxi Yang family?" "Oh, so you are a disciple of the Guangxi Yang family. Hee. No wonder. I can see that your martial arts aren't weak. So you're the daughter of the Guangxi Yang family." Big Boss's face was full of smiles, as if he was very satisfied with Yang Jiabao. Zhou Hao looked at the smile on Big Boss's face and felt very awkward in his heart. He felt that the current Big Boss was completely different from the peerless expert in the past. If it wasn't for the fact that he was an upright man, he would have looked at Yang Jiabao's expression as if she had met her future daughter-in-law's mother-in-law. Hearing Big Boss's praise for Yang Jiabao, Li Shuihan, who was sitting beside him, turned her face and revealed a very disdainful expression, as if she was saying, "Guangxi Yang family is nothing." Seeing her expression, Yang Jiabao was naturally not convinced. Just as she was about to speak, she felt Zhou Hao's hand pressing on her thigh. Knowing that Zhou Hao did not want her to quarrel with Li Shuihan, although Yang Jiabao was unwilling to go against Zhou Hao's will, she still snorted at Li Shuihan and also turned her face away from her. Zhou Hao and Big Boss saw that the two girls did not like each other, so they could only look at each other and smile bitterly. The group of people came to a high-end residential area in the center of Beijing. Zhou Hao and Yang Jiabao also followed Big Boss to the front door of a high-rise building. Big Boss pressed the doorbell. Not long after, a man opened the door. When Zhou Hao saw this man, an adjective appeared in his heart, wretched. It wasn't that Zhou Hao wanted to slander this man, but that this man didn't give people a good impression. He was about 1.7 meters tall, but he had a big belly that looked like a pumpkin. He wore a white bathrobe, and his thick legs were exposed. Looking at his appearance again, it was a face full of cheap flesh, and there was a shiny baldy on top of it. Furthermore, it was unknown whether it was an innate illness or something acquired, but there was not a single eyebrow in his eyes. The bare skin looked very awkward. His eyes were slightly narrowed like green beans, and he had 2 thick lips and a very big nose. To put it bluntly, this man was a fat pig that stood up. "Hello, Mr. Gongsun." Big Boss greeted the man with a smile. Zhou Hao felt even worse when he heard Big Boss call the man Mr. Gongsun. The first thing he thought of when he called the man Mr. Gongsun was the wise and calm Gongsun Su who helped Bao Zheng in the TV series Bao Qing Tian. As for this fat pig-like man in front of him, it was an insult to the elegant title of Mr. Gongsun. "Oh, so it's Mr. Hanmei. Ha 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 ha. What brings you here? It really brings light to my humble home." Mr. Gongsun laughed loudly and revealed his yellow teeth. His image became even worse. Big Boss cupped his fists at Mr. Gongsun and said, "I have a request for you this time. So I have come to meet you for a while. You are too polite, Mr. Hanmei. Come in, please come in." Therefore, Mr. Gongsun welcomed Big Boss, Zhou Hao and the others into his house. His unit was also a compound mansion. It was more luxurious than Zhou Hao and Yang Jiabao's love nest, and there were all kinds of famous wines on the wine cabinet in the living room. It could be seen that this Mr. Gongsun was a man of good wine. "Linfeng, who is coming?" When the voice was heard, Zhou Hao and the others saw 3 tall, well-developed, young, and beautiful women in bikini swimsuits walking down from the 2nd floor. There were still water droplets on their bodies. They might be bathing or swimming on top of the bikini. Zhou Hao saw the 3 sexy women and thought that this fatty really knew how to enjoy them. Mr. Gongsun didn't show any shame in front of Zhou Hao and the others. He only said to the 3 women, "You 3 can go back first. I have an important guest." Although the 3 women were reluctant, they still didn't dare to disobey Mr. Gongsun's order. They went upstairs to put on their clothes and left. At this time, Big Boss introduced this Mr. Gongsun to Zhou Hao. This Mr. Gongsun is called Gongsun Linfeng. He is ranked 4th among the 4 great elders of Tang sect, and he is in charge of the Black Tortoise Hall. Zhou Hao was shocked when he heard this. Before this, he had never thought that this fat man was actually an elder of the Tang sect, the Black Tortoise. Speaking of which, Zhou Hao didn't have any grudges with the Tang sect. The only conflict was that time when Ninja, the Wind Devil clan, invaded the military base of Guangzhou military region for the news of the Imperial Jade Seal. While Zhou Hao and the military were trying to capture the people of the Wind Devil clan, the Tang sect was trying to catch the mantis stalks, the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. In the end, they were followed by Zhou Hao. After that, Zhou Hao and the second elder of the Tang sect had a conflict because of the ownership of the Wind Devil clan, Ninja. The second elder of the Tang sect had internal injuries because of Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao did not get the Wind Devil clan, but the people of the Tang sect had escaped. Later on, from Zhao Rixin and Big Boss, Zhou Hao had gained a certain understanding of the Tang sect. The Tang sect was actually not an evil organization. Sometimes, they would even help the country, and they would even have a long period of enmity with their Wind Devil clan. However, the Tang sect usually did not listen to the government. Sometimes, their actions would go against the law. This was also because most of the members of the Tang sect were highly skilled in martial arts. They had the habit of using martial arts to break the law. Big Boss was the leader of the First Army. This time, they had cooperated with Zhou Hao's plan to deal with Indonesia, but they also hoped to get help from the Tang sect. Gongsun Linfeng lit up a cigar and put it in his mouth. After a long while, he smoked for a while before saying with a smile, "Mr. Hanmei has been famous in the martial arts world for many years. He's also an old friend of our sect master. If you need any help, feel free to ask. As long as it's within my capabilities, I will definitely not decline." "Then I will not hide it from you," Big Boss said to Gongsun Linfeng with a faint smile. "I believe, Mr. Gongsun, you have also heard of Indonesia's many massacres of the local people. Although those Han have already moved to foreign countries, they are still our compatriots after all. When the country is in trouble, they will not hesitate to help us. The financial crisis that erupted in Asia has a huge impact on Indonesia. Now, Indonesia's political situation is unstable. We are worried that Indonesian politicians will try to harm the local Chinese in order to divert the attention of the people. Moreover, Indonesian Chamber of Commerce has also asked for help from the country, so the higher-ups have ordered us, the First Army, to protect the local people." After a pause, Big Boss continued, "But Indonesia is a militant, and their attitude towards the local people is tough. I'm afraid it will be difficult to change it. Originally, we planned to assassinate all the high-ranking generals in Indonesia's 26 provinces, and then let Indonesian Chamber of Commerce support the people who are good to the Indonesian people to take up the position, so as to improve the status and safety of the Indonesian people. However, if we assassinate the high-ranking generals of the 26 provinces, it would be very difficult to calm down the storm. That's why I've come to ask you, Mr. Gongsun, for a solution. We've always known about the secrets of the First Army, but Mr. Hanmei did not conceal anything from me. He was truly sincere. I admire her very much." Gongsun Linfeng rubbed his big belly. He chuckled and said, "Now, I have a medicine here that can be transformed into clear water and can be lit to let it flow. It's colorless and tasteless, and the one who's affected is completely unaware. On the surface, it doesn't seem to be a big problem, but in reality, his intelligence has already been lost, allowing him to do whatever he wants. I think this medicine should be able to help Big Boss and the others." Big Boss was overjoyed when he heard this. He cupped his fists at Gongsun Linfeng and said, "Mr. Gongsun, thank you very much. However, Big Boss will remember that this medicine can only maintain its effect for about 10 hours. Once the effect of the medicine passes, the victim will die without a doubt." Gongsun Linfeng added, "Although this medicine had a time limit, being able to control those high-ranking generals who controlled the various provinces for 10 hours was already sufficient for the First Army to do anything." Zhou Hao was also very surprised by the poison provided by Gongsun Linfeng. He thought that this Tang sect was indeed worthy of being a mysterious organization that had been passed down for 1,000 years. The poison produced by it was ruthless and bizarre, and it was not inferior to the poison formulas recorded in the Shen Nong's herbal classics at all. Gongsun Linfeng naturally would not pass the medicinal formula directly to Big Boss. Instead, he would take it out and turn it into medicine. But at this time, he looked at Zhou Hao. He smiled and asked Big Boss, "Mr. Hanmei, I see that this little brother's breath has an extraordinary aura. He is indeed a dragon and phoenix among men. I wonder if Mr. Hanmei can introduce him?" Big Boss frowned slightly because he knew about the conflict between Zhou Hao and the Tang sect. While he was hesitating, Zhou Hao spoke. "Hello, Mr. Gongsun. My name is Zhou Hao." He saw Gongsun Linfeng. He then said to himself with a smile, "About half a year ago, the second elder of our sect, who was also my second brother, met a young man with exceptionally high martial arts when he was working in Guangdong. He was Ninja, who wanted to compete with our sect for the Wind Devil clan. Although my second brother tried his best to protect himself and let his disciples bring Ninja back, he was also able to escape. However, he was also injured by that young man, and his injuries have yet to fully recover. Later on, after our investigation, we found out that the young man's surname was Zhou Hao, and he was a person from the Xiang city of Guangdong. He was also the foster son of Zhao Rixin, General Zhao. Speaking of this, Gongsun Linfeng's eyes lit up, and his eyes were fixed on Zhou Hao's face. He asked with a smile on his face, "I wonder if this Zhou Hao is by Zhou Hao?" Zhou Hao hesitated for a moment, then nodded his head resolutely. "That's right. I am that Zhou Hao." Gongsun Linfeng continued to touch his large belly, his face still smiling. Heroes come from youths, heroes come from youths. Although that Liu of mine is not supreme expert, his martial arts is also first-rate. Even the Wind Devil clans from the Wind Devil clan are far inferior to yours. To think that he would be able to escape in such a sorry state under your hands. After saying that, his gaze turned to Big Boss. "Mr. Han Mei, since young hero Zhou came with you, he must be a good friend of yours." Seeing that Big Boss did not deny it, Gongsun Linfeng said, "Mr. Han Mei, young hero Zhou has a grudge with our sect. Please forgive me for not being able to provide assistance to you. I'm really sorry." Big Boss did not express anything, but Li Shuahan's expression changed. It was not directed at Gongsun Linfeng, but she glared fiercely at Zhou Hao. Because it was Zhou Hao, this variable, that made Gongsun Linfeng change his mind. Furthermore, although the martial arts of the head was much more powerful than Gongsun Linfeng's, the value of Tang sect to the government was still very high. Many times, they needed to be used. Therefore, Gongsun Linfeng could not make things difficult for Zhou Hao, so he could only vent his anger on Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao also knew that it was his existence that made Gongsun Linfeng temporarily change his mind. He felt somewhat guilty in his heart. Just as he was about to speak, Yang Jiabao, who could not watch him suffer, spoke first. She only heard her sneer at Gongsun Linfeng and said, "What we are talking about now is a national matter that concerns millions of people. What we want to save is many of our compatriots who are in dire straits. You fatty, you just stand idly by because of personal grievances. Do you know how many of our compatriots' lives will be lost because of this?" She looked at Gongsun Linfeng with eyes filled with contempt and ridicule. No wonder the Tang dynasty's Li family lost the world back then. Treating the people like ants like this, they really deserve to have such an outcome. Because the Yang family was also a martial arts family, Zhou Hao had also told her about the origin of the Tang sect. When one heard Yang Jiabao mention the origin of the Tang sect, upon hearing these words, Gongsun Linfeng's smiling face immediately changed dramatically. These words had struck the weak spot of the Tang sect disciples. The fat on his face was also trembling due to anger. His pair of bean-like eyes suddenly stared at Yang Jiabao angrily. You little girl, you actually dare to humiliate our sect? Quickly apologize to me. Then I can still forgive you for your disrespect." Yang Jiabao did not have any intention of apologizing and said without showing any weakness, "Why should I apologize? Did I say something wrong? Didn't Tang Taizong say that Junru was like a boat that could carry people like water and a boat that could be carried by water? Just based on the attitude of you people towards the people, you deserve to destroy the boat and die." You. Gongsun Linfeng was extremely furious and raised his hand to deal with Yang Jiabao. Humph. However, he heard Zhou Hao, who was beside Yang Jiabao, snort coldly. Gongsun Linfeng, who was sitting opposite of her, suddenly trembled. He instantly felt his internal organs tremble. He was also a first-rate expert, and his internal energy cultivation was very profound. Naturally, he could feel that his vital energy had been firmly locked onto by Zhou Hao. Out of the inner force expert's spiritual sense, Gongsun Linfeng knew that as long as he made any unusual movements, Zhou Hao would definitely make a move. The Tang sect's second elder's skill was even higher than Gongsun Linfeng by half a level. Even he was fleeing in a sorry state under Zhou Hao's hands, let alone Gongsun Linfeng. Therefore, Gongsun Linfeng calmed down rationally and did not dare to act rashly. And Zhou Hao's cold snort just now actually also contained deep inner energy. Although he was targeting Gongsun Linfeng, Li Shuahan could not help but feel her internal organs trembling. Thus she was secretly shocked by Zhou Hao's skill. Big Boss also nodded slightly and smiled at Zhou Hao. "Long time no see. I didn't expect Zhou Hao's skill to be so deep again." At this time, Gongsun Linfeng suppressed the surging blood and qi in his body and said to Zhou Hao, "Seeing that Mr. Han Mei and the rest are contributing to the country, it is indeed unreasonable for our Tang sect not to help. How about this? I will compete with you. If you win, then the conflict between our sect and you will be resolved. I will also do my best to help you. But if you lose, then I'm sorry. Please go back. Compete in what? Don't tell me you want to compete with Zhou Hao. Yang Jiabao crossed her arms and shot a glance at Gongsun Linfeng. Actually, there was no need for Yang Jiabao to say. The others also knew that even Big Boss did not have the confidence to defeat Zhou Hao. If Gongsun Linfeng wanted to compete with Zhou Hao, he would definitely lose. However, Gongsun Linfeng sneered and said, "My cultivation is not strong enough. Isn't competing with young hero Zhou just asking for humiliation? Besides martial arts, our Tang sect also has another ability that can be used, and that is to use medicine." Big Boss's expression immediately changed when he heard this. Although Gongsun Linfeng said that he was using medicine, Big Boss knew that it was actually using poison. Although the Tang sect was not like the Tang sect in wuxia novels that purely used poison, it was a secret organization established by the Li family of the Tang dynasty. It was much more ancient than the famous secret service organizations such as the Embroidered Uniform Guard and East Factory. They already had many secret poisons in their hands, and with the 1,000 years of development, it could be said that the Tang sect in reality used poison even better than the Tang sect of the Shub in the novels. Although a lot of wuxia novels are exaggerated, there is one situation where reality is the same as wuxia novels. That was the martial arts master's fear of poison. Even if the profound inner energy could resist the poison's invasion to a certain extent, the resistance against poison was much stronger than ordinary people. However, even if his inner energy was cultivated to Big Boss's level, it could not be invulnerable to all poisons. Those who were not highly toxic could be directly eliminated with inner energy, but when the poison reached a certain degree, he could only suppress the poison and find a solution before the poison started. When the Tang sect was in the Tang dynasty, they had mastered many poisons that were secretly smelted by various sects and the royal family. Furthermore, after thousands of years of development, their ability to use poison was probably not even comparable to the Biochemical Weapon Research Institute in the United States. The reason why the Tang sect was independent of the government and did not listen to their orders was not only because of their financial resources and their own secrets, but also because the government was afraid of the Tang sect's poison. If they were pressed too hard, if the Tang sect were to poison those big officials in the central government in a desperate situation, it would be troublesome. Now that Big Boss heard that Gongsun Linfeng was going to compete with Zhou Hao for the so-called medication, he had no choice but to worry about it. He said to Zhou Hao with a serious expression, "Zhou Hao, don't take this risk. Even without the help of the Tang sect, our first army can still complete that plan. There's no need for you to take the risk." Zhou Hao smiled. "Big Boss, you don't have to take it to heart. Even if there wasn't anything about the first army, I still wanted to settle the score with the Tang sect. Humph. Initially, I wanted to have a fight with that Li Tsongyun. Although I haven't met the true master yet, I can still dampen their spirit and prevent them from looking down on me." Zhou Hao. Initially, the Tang sect was afraid of Zhou Hao's relationship with the Zhao family, so they didn't dare to seek revenge on him. That was why Gongsun Linfeng thought of such a way to settle the conflict between the Tang sect and Zhou Hao, and the Zhao family couldn't find trouble with the Tang sect. Hearing Zhou Hao's arrogant words, Li Shuihan, who originally had no good impression of Zhou Hao, couldn't help but look at him in a different light. Yang Jiabao, who was always by Zhou Hao's side, felt very proud in her heart. She even looked at Li Shuihan in a threatening manner, as if she was saying, "Look, my man is an indomitable man." Zhou Hao looked at Gongsun Linfeng with bright eyes and a confident smile. "Mr. Gongsun, I wonder how you want to compete." Gongsun Linfeng looked at Zhou Hao's confident face. He felt a little awkward in his heart. After all, he was bullying Zhou Hao for not knowing how to use poison. Even if he won, it would inevitably cause him to be called a bully. However, the Tang sect's dignity could not be violated. Because of this, Gongsun Linfeng could only bite the bullet and attack. Taking a deep breath, he said, "I will take out a type of poison and let the other party consume it separately. If young hero Zhou doesn't have any poison on him, I can also let you prepare it. After consuming the poison, the other party can use any kind of detoxification method that can cure the poison. If one side wins, what do you think, young hero Zhou?" Upon hearing these words, Big Boss furrowed his brows. The people of Tang sect were good at using poison, and their method of detoxifying the poison was also very clever. The First Army also had some antidotes gifted by the Tang sect. They were very effective in some dangerous missions. That time, the Wind Devil clan attacked the First Army. Li Shuihan also used the antidote given by the Tang sect to cure the poison used by the First Army in a stronghold in Beijing. Therefore, Big Boss worriedly said to Sun Linfeng, "Then if we can't cure it?" "Big Boss do not need to worry. If the antidote cannot be cured, I have the antidote. Even if young hero Zhou's body cannot recover immediately, he will still be able to protect his life. His words made it seem as if Zhou Hao had already lost. Hearing his tone, Zhou Hao had already determined that he would lose without a doubt. He sneered and said, "Then that's it. There's no need to prepare. I happen to have a kind of poison on me." Thus, he saw Gongsun Linfeng get up and take out a small wooden box from a room. After opening it, he saw that there was a small and delicate capsule inside. It should be Gongsun Linfeng's poison. Zhou Hao was somewhat curious about this poison that possessed a modern packaging in Tang sect. He thought that this Tang sect could be considered to have advanced with the times. Gongsun Linfeng said, "This medicine is a highly toxic poison developed by our sect. It's called strangulation of throat with a sword. It can be directly absorbed by the skin of the human body. It only needs 2 milligrams to make a normal adult die without feeling anything for 20 seconds. Even Big Boss couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air." This strangulation of throat was even more powerful than the biochemical weapons of those international terrorists. Fortunately, it wasn't infectious. Otherwise, the disaster would be too severe. The slit throat with one sword in this capsule is exactly 2 milligrams, but with young hero Zhou's inner energy, he should be able to suppress the poison for more than 2 minutes. However, young hero Zhou, once you feel that you can't cure the poison, you must speak immediately. I will also help you cure the poison immediately. Zhou Hao nodded. Without needing Gongsun Linfeng to say anything, he picked up the capsule in the small wooden box and opened his mouth to swallow it. Young hero Zhou, you. Gongsun Linfeng could not help being shocked when he saw Zhou Hao acting so recklessly, because strangulation of throat with a sword could cause an adult to die within 20 seconds from penetrating through the skin. Swallowing it directly like this, the time of the poison spreading was even faster. However, he saw Zhou Hao smile, then took out a little red pill that was like a little finger from his bosom, and threw it into his mouth like he was eating sugar. Gongsun Linfeng immediately understood that the small red pill should be the detoxification pill that Zhou Hao prepared himself, but he didn't think it was a big deal. The poison concocted by the Tang sect had always been something that only the Tang sect could cure. Big Boss and Li Shuihan were also somewhat worried about Zhou Hao, fearing that he would be in danger if the poison was released. Gongsun Linfeng had also prepared the antidote himself. He was just waiting for Zhou Hao to lose control of the poison, then he would lend a helping hand and win the battle. But Zhou Hao just sat there leisurely like that. 1 minute, 2 minutes, even 10 minutes passed. He did not have any abnormalities either. The chief head's expression gradually relaxed along with the flow of time, and he revealed a smile. Because Gongsun Linfeng's strangulation of throat seemed to be unable to do anything to Zhou Hao. On the other hand, Gongsun Linfeng's reaction was exactly the opposite of Big Boss's. As the minute and minute passed, his facial expression became uglier and uglier. It was only after 10 minutes did he confirm with disbelief that Zhou Hao had already detoxified the toxicity of strangulation of throat, because even a supreme expert like Big Boss would not be able to suppress the toxicity of strangulation of throat with one sword for 10 minutes with his inner energy. Zhou, young hero Zhou, the red pill that you just ate is. Gongsun Linfeng's words were a little incoherent, because the poison concocted by the Tang sect, for the first time, was cured by someone outside of the Tang sect. Furthermore, that strangulation by a sword was something that the Tang sect spent many years to develop. Zhou Hao smiled faintly. That is a pill given to me by an abnormal being. I heard that it has strong detoxification abilities. Now that I try it, it is indeed not bad. That abnormal being? I am sorry. I do not know his name and whereabouts. I only met him by chance that time. Zhou Hao said with a smile. In fact, there were no mutants at all. Zhou Hao's body was immune to all kinds of poisons. Until now, he had not encountered any kind of poison that could harm his body. This strangulation of throat was no exception. As for the little red pill, it was made by Zhou Hao using his blood that had the same detoxification function. He, Zhao Yuqin, and the other girls carried it with them in case of emergencies. And the reason why Zhou Hao deliberately consumed that medicinal pill was in order to not let Big Boss, Gongsun Linfeng, and the rest know that his physique was impervious to all poisons. Yang Jiabao already knew about Zhou Hao's physique, so she wasn't worried about the competition that Gongsun Linfeng proposed just now. At this time, Zhou Hao took out another black pill. When Gongsun Linfeng saw it, his expression immediately changed. That black pill must be the poison prepared by Zhou Hao. Just now, he thought that Zhou Hao did not know how to use poison. Now that he saw that Zhou Hao could easily cure his strangulation throat, the poison that he took out must be extraordinary. Hence, Even people like Gong Sun Linfeng who used poison could not help but feel hesitant. Putting aside whether he could cure the poison of Zhou Hao's poison, Zhou Hao had just cured the poison of strangulation of throat with a sword. It could be said that he was in an undefeatable position. Mr. Gong Sun, this poison is called broken head arrow. The victim will be delirious for a minute. Before Zhou Hao could finish speaking, Gong Sun Linfeng had already raised his hand and said, "Young hero Zhou, there's no need. I admit defeat." When young Jiabao heard these words, she immediately puffed up her cheeks and said angrily, "You fatty are so shameless. You want to not eat poison just because you admit defeat? You are bullying me." Zhou Hao patted young Jiabao's hand and smiled. "Jiabao, don't mess around. Since Mr. Gong Sun has already admitted defeat, let's forgive him if possible. Forget it." He turned to Gong Sun Linfeng. "I only hope that Mr. Gong Sun can keep his promise. In the future, Tang sect will not find trouble with me. Also, this time, you have to do your best to help Big Boss. Young hero Zhou is magnanimous. I admire you." Gong Sun Linfeng gave Zhou Hao a hug. Zhou Hao only smiled lightly. That graceful bearing made Big Boss secretly praise him, and it also made Gong Sun Linfeng feel ashamed in his heart. What they didn't know was, actually, it wasn't that Zhou Hao didn't want Gong Sun Linfeng to taste the taste of poison, but that he didn't prepare any poison on him. He was merely taking advantage of the fact that he wasn't afraid of the poison of strangulation of throat, causing Gong Sun Linfeng to feel fear in his heart and scare him. What he gambled was that Gong Sun Linfeng would automatically admit defeat. Facts also prove that he won the bet. As for that black-colored medicinal pill, it was merely an old Niwen that Zhou Hao had rubbed out from his body at the last moment. In mid-January, the second wave of Asian financial storms broke out in Indonesia, and the Indonesian stock market fell apart. However, unlike Zhou Hao's previous life, this storm was much fiercer and had a wider range of impact. Because of Zhou Hao's participation, the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce had secretly invested more than $20 billion in Indonesia. China's Construction Bank, Industrial and Commercial Bank, Agricultural Bank, and China Bank had secretly sent 50 billion renminbi to Zhou Hao's Galaxy Investment Company under the instructions of the chairman and the prime minister. In addition to the $10 billion that Zhou Hao had invested previously under such a large-scale operation, the financial storm that erupted in Indonesia was naturally much fiercer. As for George Soros and Julian Robeson and the other instigators also thought that Zhou Hao and the others' funds were just international speculators who had rushed over after smelling the blood. They did not know about the political motives of Zhou Hao and the others. When Zhao Rixin informed the chairman and the prime minister of the Galaxy Investment Company, these two leaders were greatly shocked. Never in their dreams would they have thought that Zhou Hao would be able to earn $10 billion so quietly. They admired his ability in the international financial market, so they handed over the acquisition of Indonesian shares to Zhou Hao. In addition to borrowing Zhou Hao's talent, they also wanted to hide it from others. After all, if government of China was involved in this matter, the international storm would be very difficult to quell. At the same time, the chairman and the prime minister were once again envious of Zhao Rixin for taking in Zhou Hao as his godson. Zhao Rixin was naturally very satisfied with Zhou Hao. When Pang Jinting excitedly called Zhou Hao and told him that Indonesia really had a financial storm, Zhou Hao was still lying on young Jiabao's jade-like body and enjoying his beautiful dream. "Brother Zhou, it's done. It's really done. Indonesia is really in a financial crisis." On the other side of the phone, Pang Jinting was as excited as a child. "Hee, this is all thanks to you, Elder Pang." Zhou Hao smiled and said. He even used his face to stroke young Jiabao's soft and fragrant breasts, causing young Jiabao to roll her eyes. Although Pang Jinting was very happy, he also knew that Zhou Hao was complimenting him. In fact, the one who operated this large sum of money was Zhou Hao's Galaxy Investment Company's operations team. Although Indonesian Chambers of Commerce also had a decent financial management team, they only played a supporting role. "Oh right, Brother Zhou, I have already handed over the evidence of Suharto and his family's corruption and money laundering to Wahid as you said. When the impact of this financial crisis increases a little, let Wahid expose all of this evidence." Zhou Hao reminded, "Elder Pang, you all must be careful about this matter. Don't let Suharto and the others know about it. Otherwise, not only will our plan be affected, it will also jeopardize your safety. You can rest assured about this, Brother Zhou. We have the protection of the First Army here. Even if we fail in the end, we will still be able to retreat safely." Pang Jinting said with a smile. After Big Boss discussed the specific details of the plan with Zhou Hao, he brought Li Shuihan and more than half of the soldiers from First Army to Indonesia. On the one hand, They wanted to take control of the cabinet and the high-ranking generals of the provinces when Suharto got off the stage and Indonesia's political situation was unstable. They wanted Pang Jinting and the others to arrange for the pro-China members to be pushed onto the stage. On the other hand, with the help of Pang Jinting and the others, they were secretly stationed in the various enterprises of Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, or the manners of the Chamber of Commerce members. If there was really a bloody incident in Indonesia, they would ruthlessly attack those thugs and try their best to protect the local people. In fact, in addition to the people from First Army, Zhao Rixin also arranged for the special forces to go to Indonesia. After all, this mission was very powerful and covered a wide area. It required a large number of people. As for the First Army, although they were all elites, they walked the path of expensive but not expensive, so they had to dispatch the special forces to fill in the numbers. Pang Jinting also used Suharto's government's trust in Indonesian Chamber of Commerce to secretly transport large amounts of firearms to Indonesia for the use of First Army and Special Forces. There was another thing Pang Jinting did not know about. Big Boss had already secretly met Wahid, whom the Chamber of Commerce had previously roped in. Back then, Zhou Hao had recommended Wahid to the chairman, the prime minister, and Zhao Rixin, saying that Wahid could be China's spokesperson in Indonesia. Due to the importance of this matter, it would affect the relationship between China and Indonesia in the future. Therefore, even though the chairman and the others trusted Zhou Hao very much, they had to observe Wahid in advance. Big Boss, on the other hand, represented the central government to meet with Wahid. After their first meeting, Big Boss sent a report to Zhao Rixin, who was in the country. His evaluation of Wahid was useful. Compared to the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, Wahid naturally hoped to get China's support. Therefore, everyone, including Pang Jinting, did not know that Wahid, who was not famous yet, had been tied up on this big ship in China. When do you plan to leave this time? On the bed, Yang Jiabao gently caressed Zhou Hao's hair. Her eyes were as gentle as autumn water. I might have to leave on the first day of the Lunar New Year. Zhou Hao said, I want to spend this new year with my godfather and the others. I will only return to Xiang City on the second day of the Lunar New Year. Yang Jiabao pouted and said bitterly, when will you return to our young family? She also knew the importance of Zhao family to Zhou Hao, and she couldn't help but feel a trace of jealousy towards Zhao Yuqin. Although the Yang family was a 100-year-old family, in terms of power, it was only useful in the Guangxi region, and it couldn't catch up with the Zhao family. Yang Jiabao hoped that her family would be more valuable to Zhou Hao. In this way, her position in Zhou Hao's heart might be higher. Just like in ancient times, the status of a woman in a husband's family was often related to the strength of her own family. Next year's Spring Festival, I will accompany you to Guangxi. Zhou Hao did not know how many thoughts Yang Jiabao had in her mind at that moment. Yang Jiabao immediately reached out her pinky and hooked Zhou Hao's pinky. You said you will come to my house next year. When did I ever lie to you? Zhou Hao smiled brightly. Yang Jiabao also had to go back to Guangxi during her winter vacation, and now it was winter vacation from Peking University. There was still half a month left, so he could enjoy this period of time with Zhou Hao. This could be considered to make up for Yang Jiabao's regret of not being able to spend the Spring Festival with Zhou Hao. Of course, although Yang Jiabao spent the night with Zhou Hao every day during this period of time, she still had to go back to class during the day because she still had to deal with the final exams. While Yang Jiabao was in class, Zhou Hao was with Zhao Yuqin. Originally, Yin Xining had some negative comments about Zhou Hao staying outside at night every day because she had long regarded Zhou Hao as her own son. Naturally, she hoped that Zhou Hao could live in the Zhao family's residence. However, Zhao Rixin knew that Zhou Hao was busy with Indonesia during this period of time, so he told his wife that Zhou Hao was busy with national affairs. What the two old men didn't know was that although Zhou Hao was busy with Indonesia, at the same time, he was also having sex with Yang Jiabao every night. They didn't know that their precious daughter and Zhou Hao were often having sex in broad daylight. In the Zhao family's residence, even Zhao Rixin and his wife had gone to work. Naturally, they were hindering Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin's proper business, so Zhao Yuqin simply booked a suite at the Wang Mansion's Jing Hotel to make it convenient for her to meet Zhou Hao. At this time, Zhou Hao once again went to Zhao Yuqin's suite as planned. Zhao Yuqin had just finished the beauty and massage service provided by the hotel downstairs, and now she was standing by the bed and taking off her skirt. When she heard the sound of the door opening, Zhao Yuqin did not avoid it, because besides herself, the only person who had the key to this room was Zhou Hao. In front of Zhou Hao, she did not need to avoid anything. Sure enough, when Zhou Hao turned around and saw Zhao Yuqin standing by the bed, taking off her skirt, revealing a pair of long legs wrapped in black silk stockings, as well as the faintly discernible secret location of the peach garden, He fiercely swallowed his saliva and his eyes shot out. Ever since Zhou Hao broke her body and received Zhou Hao's nourishment, Zhao Yuqin, who was already a stunning beauty, became more and more devastatingly beautiful. Just a lazy yawn was enough to hook Zhou Hao's soul away. Seeing Zhou Hao standing there blankly looking at her, the corner of Zhao Yuqin's mouth curled up. Are you willing to let Jiabao go and come to elder sister's place? You did not let Jiabao know, right? Zhou Hao sighed slightly. Actually, it is. If I didn't say it, how could Jiabao not know? She just doesn't want to say it out loud. Jiabao is a smart girl. Although sometimes she is a bit willful, she is also a rare good companion. Humph. Humph. I don't know what kind of drug you have taken, but both of us sisters have been deceived by you. As she spoke, she took off her coat, leaving only a white collar shirt. Zhou Hao liked Zhao Yuqin to wear that kind of professional clothing. It was also the so-called OL dress. Because Zhao Yuqin was originally a strong woman, wearing this kind of suit was just right. Zhou Hao walked to her side and hugged her. His hands also touched her thighs. The two of them sat on the bed, leaning against each other. Zhao Yuqin knocked off Zhou Hao's naughty hand that was unbuttoned his shirt and turned on the TV. She saw a financial show on the TV. Zhou Hao's attention was originally focused on Zhao Yuqin, but when he glanced at the TV screen, he was stunned. Because in the financial program that was broadcasted on the television, other than the host, his guest was actually the mentor of Yang Jiabao's class that Zhou Hao had previously seen, He Xiangping. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Finance Line. I believe all the audiences who are paying attention to the international financial situation know about it. In the past few days, Indonesia had another financial crisis and was affected by it. The stock market in Asia continues to decline. The well-dressed female host said to the camera lens, "Today, we are very honored to invite Professor He Xiangping from Beijing University's Radiance Management College to be our guest. Professor He, many shareholders say that this financial storm will have a huge impact on the domestic stock market. What do you think about this? I didn't expect this guy to be on TV too." At the same time, he secretly unlocked the button on Zhao Yuqin's shirt. Zhao Yuqin saw how persistent Zhou Hao was. It was also up to him to say, that is to say Jiabao's mentor, He Xiangping? He looks quite cultured. He is a typical intellectual. Zhou Hao curled his lips and said disapprovingly, he is just an intellectual who thinks highly of himself and looks down on everyone. Don't tell me you are slandering him just because he likes Jiabao. Zhao Yuqin pointed at Zhou Hao's nose. I am telling the truth. Zhou Hao pretended to be a tiger. He opened his mouth and bit Zhao Yuqin's finger. He started to suck it. He Xiangping looked at the camera and said seriously, actually, I had already predicted that the financial storm would explode again. I just did not expect it to explode in Indonesia. But one thing is certain. This is the second wave of the financial storm in July of 1997. There are still international investors like Soros behind the scenes who are adding fuel to the fire. Furthermore, as the economic systems of the various countries in Southeast Asia are not perfect, I estimate that the second wave of financial storm will be fiercer and last for a longer period of time. It will also have a greater impact on the various countries in Asia. As for those who believe that the financial storms will affect the domestic stock market, what I want to say here is that the impact will definitely be there, but it will definitely not be big. He Xiangping adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his face and said confidently, our country's stock market is not internationally linked. This is a weakness and also an advantage. The weakness is the lack of flexibility in the flow of funds. It is unable to follow the footsteps of the international financial market and slow down the development of domestic stock markets. The advantage is that it has a large protective effect on the domestic stock market. For example, this financial storm. As our financial market is not connected to the international financial market, the impact of the financial storm is not as big as that of Japan, Korea, and Maltese. Zhao Yuqin heard He Xiangping's words and smiled at Zhou Hao. Haha, I think this He Xiangping is quite talented. Speaking of which, he is very good at everything. Zhou Hao turned his face and said, humph, humph, those words of his are just a few thousand gold coins. Anyone can say a few words. Myriad gold oil? Zhao Yuqin obviously did not know the language of the internet in the future. It's something that can be used anywhere. At this time, the female host of the financial program asked He Xiangping, Professor He, what measures do you think our country should take in this financial storm? Haha, I think our country should use this opportunity to depreciate the value of RMB. Then, he said the benefits of depreciating the value of RMB, just like what he had said to Zhou Hao and the others in the delicious restaurant. Seeing He Xiangping in high spirits in front of the camera, Zhou Hao could not help shaking his head. This guy is getting worse. Zhao Yuqin naturally knew about the decision made by the central government regarding this financial storm, so she was against He Xiaoping's opinion. After thinking for a while, Zhao Yuqin came back to her senses and realized that her shirt had already been taken off by Zhou Hao, this little enemy. Even her bra had been pushed up by him, and was about to launch a sneak attack on her voluptuous breasts. You pervert. You are the one who has become worse. Zhao Yuqin pouted. Zhou Hao was originally like a child who had been discovered eating candy. After hearing Zhao Yuqin's coquettish voice, he simply let go of his hands and feet and directly put his face on Zhao Yuqin's face. He bit and bit at Zhao Yuqin's alluring pair of jade milk, causing Zhao Yuqin to cry out in shock, but she was reluctant to push him away. Big sister. He suddenly lifted his head from the debauchery and looked at Zhao Yuqin. You two beautiful women are only this big now. How can you have children in the future? I'm afraid that it will spoil our child. Zhao Yuqin saw Zhou Hao's malicious smile and said shyly, You bad person? Who wants to have children with you? You are really naughty. Don't tell me that after giving birth to a child, you will also grow up like you and bully girls? That is good. This is the Zhou family's fine tradition. Zhou Hao chuckled. Although Zhao Yuqin was pouting, when she thought about giving birth to Zhou Hao's child, her face was filled with sweetness. Zhou Hao saw that her face was suddenly filled with motherly brilliance. He even subconsciously touched her flat and fat belly. He couldn't help but move closer to her and kiss her tender red lips in amusement. He felt that Zhou Hao's hand was already taking off his underwear. Zhao Yuqin hurriedly pushed him away. Don't. Turn off the TV first. Because the camera of the TV was facing He Xiaoping, it was like He Xiaoping was looking at the two of them on the bed, making Zhao Yuqin very uncomfortable. Zhou Hao was about to take the remote control to turn off the television when he heard He Xiaoping say on the television, When the domestic stock market is not affected by the financial storm, I speculate that the following shares will have a large increase. He Xiaoping then said the names of the few shares. Zhou Hao, who originally wanted to turn off the TV, stopped when he heard the names of these few shares. Because in his impression, these few shares that He Xiaoping mentioned had the largest increment at the beginning of 1998. Zhou Hao frowned. He knew that apart from a few shares that relied on his own strength to rise, the rest of the shares were mostly sold by people at the back of the market. But no matter what, these few shares would definitely rise. Zhou Hao did not know if He Xiaoping had received the insider information about the bankers, or if he had really deduced it through his own analysis. If this was the result of He Xiaoping's own analysis, then he would have to reevaluate him. Zhao Yuqin, who was waiting for Zhou Hao to violate him, saw that Zhou Hao was suddenly looking at He Xiaoping in a trance on the television. She asked curiously, What's wrong? Did he say anything? She was in a state of confusion just now. How could she hear what He Xiaoping said? Zhou Hao told Zhao Yuqin about the few shares He Xiaoping mentioned, and Zhao Yuqin asked, Do you know those few shares? Yes, I also estimate that those few shares will rise, and it will not be small. If that is the case, it seems that He Xiaoping is quite capable. Yes, Zhao Yuqin said. Most of the normal financial reviewers, or rather, the stock reviewers, were postponents. Usually, when a certain stock rose to a high position, he would say that the stock was recommended by him earlier. There were also many share reviewers who recommended shares to the public, but they did not have the value to invest in them. Some of the stock reviewers even became the mouthpiece of the banker and became the tools for the banker to attract the shareholders to the board, serving the banker. Those so-called shareholders were to a large extent misleading the investors. This was so that some people gave a direct evaluation. If those shareholders were really so godly, they would have long ago fired their own shares and made a fortune. Why would they need to show themselves? Therefore, whether it was in his previous life or in this life, Zhou Hao did not have a good impression of those shareholders. And now, looking at He Xiaoping, he really did have some real talent. As long as those few shares rose after a period of time, his name would easily spread through the financial world. Although Zhou Hao was very polite to He Xiaoping back at Peking University, in fact, Zhou Hao didn't have a good impression of He Xiaoping. Apart from the fact that He Xiaoping was a hypocrite who appeared to be virtuous on the surface, it was also because He Xiaoping had evil thoughts about Yang Jiabao. Zhou Hao had never admitted that he was a large number of people. Now, he was even thinking about whether he should use any means to suppress the few shares that He Xiaoping had said would rise. But then he thought about it again. If he wanted to suppress those shares, he would have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. Although Zhou Hao did not care, it was not worth it to use it against someone like He Xiaoping. Shaking his head, Zhou Hao laughed self-deprecatingly. Why should he worry about such unimportant people? Looking at Zhao Yuqin, who was lying beside him, Zhou Hao shouted in his heart, It's better to cherish the person in front of me. Then, He took advantage of Zhao Yuqin being unprepared and took off her underwear. He also pressed on her naked body. It was inevitable for the magic mountain to rain and cloud. After coming back from Venice, Zhao Yuqin and Zhou Hao had a good time together. Their bodies were becoming more and more sensitive to Zhou Hao. Whenever Zhou Hao touched her leg, the secret spot between his legs would reveal something embarrassing. However, Zhao Yuqin did not want to resist Zhou Hao. Instead, she wanted to enjoy the gentleness and passion Zhou Hao gave her, and the true happiness of that woman. After a few orgasms, Zhao Yuqin weakly lay in Zhou Hao's arms. She could not help but think that she and Yang Jiabao were allowed to be tormented by this little enemy day and night, but he had never shown any signs of exhaustion. If it was an ordinary person, he would have died of exhaustion a long time ago. Suppressing the distracting thoughts in her heart, she said to Zhou Hao, "Oh right, Xiao Hao, vice chairman who wants to see you." Vice chairman who? Zhou Hao, who was still reminiscing about the pleasure just now, did not immediately react. It was only after a long while that he was greatly shocked. Could it be that boss who? That is the future leader. In fact, Zhou Hao knew that boss who had yet to become the vice chairman, but it would be soon. Besides, the central government had already made a decision. Boss Hu and the vice chairman were only short of a letter of appointment. Furthermore, after the current chairman was replaced, Boss Hu would take over his position. Therefore, in Zhou Hao's eyes, Boss Hu's position was even more important than the current chairman. For the sake of his future development, Zhou Hao had long wanted to embrace this great Buddha. However, the original Zhou Hao had neither money nor power, so how could he have the means to meet him? And now, Zhou Hao had a net worth of 10 billion, and he was also Zhao Rixin's foster son, so he had many considerations. Because if Zhou Hao rashly went to visit Boss Hu, it wouldn't be a good thing in the eyes of those who were interested. Whether it was for himself or the Zhao family, this wasn't a wise decision. Therefore, Zhou Hao didn't take any action. Unexpectedly, Boss Hu took the initiative to look for him. It was because of Zhou Hao's concern. He only asked Zhao Yuqin, "Sister, why is he looking for me? Could it be that I did something wrong?" Indeed, Zhou Hao did not understand why Boss Hu would suddenly look for him. He knows that you are the main executor of this plan for Indonesia, so he wants to talk to you about this matter, Zhao Yuqin said. In fact, it was not Boss Hu who asked her to meet Zhou Hao personally. It was Boss Hu's secretary, Zhao Yuqin. Zhou Hao felt strange. It doesn't make sense. Indonesia's plan has already been decided. The few chiefs have already nodded. What else is there to talk about? Also, I am not a main executor. I am just a pawn. He knew his own limitations. This plan against Indonesia had already reached the national level. Although it was Zhou Hao who proposed the plan, his role in the plan was also very important. The chairman and the prime minister even gave Zhou Hao the 50 billion provided by the major banks of the country. But Zhou Hao knew that he was just a big flag bearer, so he didn't dare to be proud of his achievements. Although he was not a person in the official circles, he knew that it was a huge taboo in the official circles. Of course, to be able to be a big shot for the country, even if he was a pawn, the benefits were hard to measure. He heard Zhao Yuqin laugh. Humph, humph, humph. Actually, that was just his word. I think, on one hand, he appreciated your ability. On the other hand, he wanted my father, or our Zhao family. In terms of political sensitivity, Zhou Hao knew that he could not catch up to Zhao Yuqin, who came from an official family. He quickly asked, "Sister, quickly tell me. Don't tell me that person wants to use me as a gun." Zhao Yuqin's Tiantian finger circled around Zhou Hao's chest. Her beautiful face was full of a crafty smile. "Sister, stop messing around. You lifted me up. Don't blame me when the time comes." Zhou Hao fiercely pinched the large white rabbit on Zhao Yuqin's chest. Sure enough, Zhao Yuqin stopped and smiled. "Xiao Hao, you also know father's position in the military, right?" Zhou Hao nodded. He might not have known about it before, but after becoming Zhao Rixin's adopted son and realizing the benefits of being an adopted son, Zhou Hao had a clearer understanding of it. In terms of fame and position, Zhao Rixin had the position of deputy prime minister, but there were several deputy prime ministers in the country, so compared to the chairman, prime minister, and even Boss Hu was about to take up the position, this position was not considered high. Apart from that, Zhao Rixin was also a regular member of the political bureau, a high-ranking official of the country. Putting aside these titles, Zhao Rixin's position in the military was what people looked up to the most. Many of the high-ranking military officers in the country were subordinates of Old Master Zhao. Among them, the one who climbed the highest was none other than the current commander of the Nanjing military, Zhu Yongquan. Old Master Zhao's eldest son, Zhao Dingzhou, was also the commander of the Guangzhou military. He also had many other connections. Although it was said that the military and politics in China did not separate, and the chairman was also the highest leader in the military in reality, in terms of status in the military and connections in the military, even the chairman could not compare to Old Master Zhao. This was why, apart from the chairman and the prime minister, there was also the vice prime minister, Old Master Zhao, who was directly in charge of the most mysterious army in the country, the First Army. Zhao Yuqin said, "Dad's position in the military is very important. If he can get support, it will be very beneficial to anyone. Even if he wants to sit at the highest position, if he gets support from Dad, it will also be much smoother." Although Zhao Yuqin did not say it clearly, Zhou Hao already knew what she meant. He asked in surprise, "Could it be that boss who already has the intention to sit at that position?" Of course, Zhou Hao knew that boss who would be the chairman in the future, but he didn't expect that he would be making preparations now, because there were still 5 years left before his appointment. However, when he thought about it, Zhou Hao felt relieved. This was the peak of the peak. No matter if it was the entire government or himself, they had to make preparations as soon as possible. However, Zhou Hao also understood that this was the highest level of battle in the official circles of China. Just like the battle for the throne in ancient times, if one was not careful, one would be crushed to death. Furthermore, even if Boss Hu would be in power in the future, the current chairman still had 5 years of time. If these two great gods did not look at each other and Zhou Hao rashly leaned towards Boss Hu, then his life would not be easy. Zhao Yuqin easily saw through Zhou Hao's concerns. She reached out her hand and gently caressed his forehead, as if she wanted to smooth his furrowed brows. She smiled and said, "Actually, you don't have to worry so much. Although the central government already has a candidate, it will take at least a few years before the real term change will happen. Furthermore, the relationship between Chairman Jiang and Vice Chairman Hu isn't bad. On the contrary, it's very harmonious." Zhou Hao heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. He was thinking in his heart, "That's right. Isn't politics just a matter of continuous negotiations and compromises?" He remembered that in the 60th anniversary military parade in his previous life, President Jiang was still able to stand on the Tiananmen Gate. The two of them were not political enemies who would never stop fighting, nor did they never interact with each other. Moreover, modern society was not an ancient feudal dynasty after all. No one could sit in that position for the rest of their lives. It was better for them to retreat in haste and give up the position in a grand manner to the next one. This way, they could still take the initiative and fight for more benefits. To be able to sit at the top of that position, naturally, they were not ordinary people. They probably already had this awareness. Therefore, with Zhao Yuqin's guidance, Zhou Hao understood that the relationship between Chairman Jiang and Boss Hu might be much better than what he had imagined. He heard Zhao Yuqin laugh again. "Actually, you don't have to be so nervous. Vice Chairman Hu just wants to express his sincerity to Dad through you. Just treat it as if you just want to meet an ordinary elder. Don't think of yourself as so important. If my brother wasn't a great general guarding a region and couldn't be openly roped in, do you think Vice Chairman Hu would find a little pervert like you?" Zhou Hao immediately showed a bitter face. "Sister, you can't blow people up like this. I was just feeling proud in my heart. No, I have to revitalize my husband. Otherwise, you will bully me in the future, won't you?" After saying that, Zhou Hao turned Zhao Yuqin over and pushed her down. The evil dragon also pressed against the root of Zhao Yuqin's leg and gently rubbed it. No, good little brother, kiss little brother. Don't, big sister can't take it anymore. The last cry of surprise was broken through by Zhou Hao with a single push. It could be considered that he had completely fallen into Zhou Hao's hands. Under the irresistible force, Zhao Yuqin could only raise her head and endure Zhou Hao's attack. The resentment in her heart was quickly drowned by the waves of pleasure. When meeting with Boss Hu, naturally, she could not go to the hotels. If that was the case, it would make Boss Hu seem vulgar. Furthermore, Boss Hu was currently a member of the country, so he couldn't casually enter and exit the hotel. Therefore, the meeting place was in Boss Hu's residence, in a unique and quiet courtyard. Of course, in this seemingly inconspicuous courtyard, there were actually many guards with extraordinary skills hidden, just like the Zhao family's mansion. When Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin arrived together, Boss Hu was washing tea for the two of them. Zhou Hao quickly walked up to them. "Chairman Hu, how can I be embarrassed? Let me do it." Boss Hu smiled at Zhou Hao and said, "It doesn't matter. You are a guest the moment you enter. Besides, how can there be a guest to serve the master?" When Zhou Hao heard this, he couldn't help but think in his heart, "Boss Hu, you have no idea how many people want to serve you." This was the first time Zhou Hao had seen Boss Hu at such a close distance. In his past life, he could only see him on television or in newspapers. Boss Hu was dressed in casual clothes. His face was round and his eyes were spirited. Perhaps it was because of his first impression, but in Zhou Hao's eyes, Boss Hu's appearance was very expensive. Just as Zhao Yuqin had said, Boss Hu treated Zhou Hao like an elder, but he was very friendly, which made Zhou Hao feel flattered. Boss Hu was even more kind to Zhao Yuqin. Zhou Hao also followed Zhao Yuqin and called him uncle, which made Zhou Hao sigh in his heart. Even Boss Hu has become my uncle. This is really an honor to our ancestors. Come. My wife has already prepared dinner. Let's eat together. Boss Hu invited Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin into the dining hall. Therefore, Zhou Hao saw Madame Hu, a virtuous wife and mother-type girl. Xiao Hao, come and have a drink with Uncle Hu. Your uncle who hasn't had a drink in a long time. Boss Hu took out a bottle of old Maotai under Madame Hu's angry gaze. Zhou Hao hurriedly took the bottle and poured a cup for Boss Hu and himself. Before Madame Hu could complain, Zhou Hao smiled first and said, "It's good for the body to taste wine occasionally. Besides, I have a healthcare prescription here. It's very good for Uncle Hu and Auntie Hu's health." For people like Boss Hu who had almost reached the pinnacle of power and did not have to worry about their lives, what they were most interested in was not money, but their own health. Therefore, Zhou Hao took out the healthcare prescription that Zhao Rixin and the chairman praised. Health prescription? Boss Hu and Madame Hu revealed curious expressions at the same time. Although Boss Hu was now one of the top leaders of the country and was about to be the vice chairman, the chairman and the prime minister had promised Zhou Hao not to spread the prescription, so Boss Hu did not know about it. Only to hear Zhou Hao laugh and say, "Yes, this was left to me by my master before he passed away. The effect is very good. Didn't my godfather leave many sequelae on the battlefield in his early years? He also had rheumatism. He only got better after eating this prescription. President Jiang, Prime Minister Zhu, and the others are also full of praise for my prescription." Boss Hu suddenly smiled. "I'm curious. Old Jiang and the others look much better in the past, especially old Zhao. It's been a long time since I saw him get wet and painful. I asked them if they had taken some tonic, but they just smiled and didn't tell me. It turns out that they used your prescription, Xiao Hao. Is it really that effective?" Madame Hu also said, "A few days ago, I went to see Xining and saw that her white hair was much less. She was completely 10 years younger. Could it be that she also used Xiao Hao's prescription?" Zhao Yuqin, who was beside Zhou Hao, smiled and said, "Yes, Aunt Qing. Now, I don't even know how much my mother dotes on Xiao Hao. She almost forgot about this daughter of mine." Madame Hu smiled and said, "Xiao Hao, it's good that your prescription is so effective. Old Hu and I are not young anymore. This machine is also not that easy to use. Although the country has given us a few old military doctors, the effect of the medicine they prescribed is not that good." They originally wanted to build a good relationship with Zhou Hao, but Boss Hu and his wife did not want to decline. Furthermore, this medicinal formula was really useful to them. Then they heard Boss Hu slowly smile and say, "Xiao Hao, I heard from old Zhao that your investment company earned over 10 billion. It's true that there are talented people in the world who pay for it." "Oh right," Boss Hu said, "I heard from Elder Zhao that your investment company has earned over 100 billion yuan. You seem to have a beverage company called Sky River under you. It seems to be the head of domestic beverage companies. However, as the saying goes, a big tree attracts the wind. Xiao Hao, you should be more careful when handling matters. It's good that young people have momentum, but it's not appropriate for them to show off their edge." Zhou Hao hurriedly smiled and said, "Xiao Hao will definitely remember Uncle Hu's words in his heart." Seeing that Zhou Hao is neither servile nor overbearing, Boss Hu praised in his heart. Among all the young people he had seen, there were really not many who could compare to Zhou Hao. He smiled and said, "If there's anything you need Uncle Hu's help with, you don't have to be polite." Zhou Hao naturally understood that Boss Hu's previous words were just a foreshadowing. The most important thing was still to pave the way. The last sentence. He was willing to take care of Zhou Hao. On one hand, he was grateful for Zhou Hao's health prescription. On the other hand, he wanted to get closer to the Zhao family. Of course, Zhou Hao couldn't wait to build a good relationship with Boss Hu. He knew very well that money could bring many privileges in China, but if he really offended the person in power, he would definitely not have a good ending. He remembered that in his previous life, the richest man in China had been imprisoned because he had offended the higher-ups. Although Zhou Hao and Boss Hu had ulterior motives, there was no lack of true feelings. In particular, Boss Hu and his wife loved Zhou Hao, a sensible and steady junior. Madame Hu kept adding food to Zhou Hao's bowl, making Boss Hu jealous. During the meal, Boss Hu told Zhou Hao many things about the past, including his experiences in dealing with people. Zhou Hao benefited a lot from this. Zhao Yuqin, on the other hand, was beside him. She looked at Zhou Hao talking to Boss Hu and Madam Hu with a smile on her face, and her heart was filled with pride. Suddenly, Zhou Hao felt an itch on the back of his feet. It was as if someone was gently teasing him. Zhou Hao's heart skipped a beat. Of course, it wasn't Boss Hu or Madam Hu who was teasing him. If that was the case, there would only be one person left. He turned his face slightly to look at Zhao Yuqin. He saw that Zhao Yuqin's expression was the same as usual, and she was chatting with Madam Hu passionately. At this moment, Zhou Hao felt Zhao Yuqin use her toes to lift up his pants and gently stroke his foot. The texture of the stockings, coupled with the fact that Boss Hu and Madam Hu were right in front of him, made Zhou Hao's heart beat faster. This sister is too bold. Zhou Hao was secretly surprised in his heart, but he did not have the slightest intention of stopping Zhao Yuqin. Furthermore, Zhou Hao also pretended that nothing had happened and reached under the table. He secretly touched Zhao Yuqin's leg. He pushed Zhao Yuqin's skirt up a little, and then caressed Zhao Yuqin's thighs through the thin stockings. He also slowly touched the inner side, and even used his fingers to provoke her underwear from time to time. Yuqin, why is your face so red? Are you uncomfortable? Hearing Madam Hu's words, Zhou Hao immediately retracted his hand without a trace, and Zhao Yuqin explained to Madam Hu, Aunt Xing, I am fine. Maybe I drank some wine just now. As she spoke, her beautiful eyes inadvertently glanced at Zhou Hao, causing Zhou Hao's heart to soften. Madam Hu glared at Boss Hu, who was beside her. It's all your fault. You forced Yuqin to drink. Boss Hu, who would support the entire country in the future, did not dare to say a word in front of Madam Hu. His face was full of grievance. Zhou Hao, who was watching from the side, secretly laughed in his heart. He thought that if he told others what Boss Hu feared, perhaps no one would believe him. Both parties enjoyed their dinner very much. When they left Elder Hu and the others, Zhou Hao suddenly put his hand under his nose and sniffed, then revealed an intoxicated expression and said with a smile, so fragrant. Zhao Yuqin remembered where Zhou Hao's hand had touched just now. Her face immediately turned red. She raised her fist and punched Zhou Hao. You bad guy. Zhou Hao chuckled and said, Who did it first? This bad brother of yours really knows how to take revenge for the smallest grievance. Don't tell me he won't give in to your elder sister. He only knows how to bully your elder sister. When the mature Zhao Yuqin revealed the expression of Chu Chu, Zhou Hao couldn't help but feel pity for her. Because Yang Jiabao had something to do today, she had to stay overnight at school. Therefore, Zhou Hao could not help but spend the whole night with Zhao Yuqin, causing the beauty to be tormented to death, but she was also unable to extricate herself from that surging passion. In the following days, the situation in Indonesia's stock market worsened, as Zhou Hao had expected. The economy in all areas of Indonesia was rapidly deteriorating, and the conflicts were also becoming more and more intense. At the same time, Indonesia's request for help from the International Monetary Fund was also rejected. Many foreign investments in Indonesia were also withdrawn. Pang Jinting and the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce had been helping Suharto transfer funds, so they had a close relationship with Suharto's government. Through this relationship, Zhou Hao used the empty shell companies registered in the United States to buy the shares of those valuable Indonesian state-owned enterprises, especially Indonesian National Oil Company. Within a week, 3% of the shares fell under Zhou Hao's empty shell company. With so many foreign investors withdrawing their investments, Zhou Hao had invested a large amount of foreign capital to buy the shares of Indonesian state-owned enterprises. Naturally, the Indonesian government was delighted. At the same time, some of the Indonesian politicians that Pang Jinting and the others had roped in also took advantage of Indonesia's economic crisis to suggest Suharto to step down. Indonesia was very dissatisfied with Suharto's dictatorship and the participation of the military in politics. Therefore, when these comments were brought up, it caused a huge reaction. Many people started to ask Suharto to step down. Suharto was naturally very angry. He also used his army to suppress the people who wanted him to step down from the stage. However, even if those people were suppressed, the pressure Suharto faced did not reduce. Because not only were the people outside unstable, even the people in the government were eyeing his position, including his son-in-law, Prabowo. Although Suharto knew that he was old, he still didn't want to let go of the power in his hands. Therefore, when his position was threatened, Suharto thought about how to divert the attention of the people in the country to buy himself some time to stabilize the cabinet. Zhou Hao naturally knew that Suharto's way of shifting his gaze was to turn the blame on the local Indonesian people. Therefore, he asked Pang Jinting and the others to make preparations and secretly inform the local people. Once there was an emergency, they would immediately head to the various branches of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce or the companies of the Chamber of Commerce to take refuge. The people here were naturally those who had their motherland in their hearts or leaned towards the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce. As for those who had long regarded themselves as Indonesian people, they were not included. In any case, even if there was a conflict, those people would not be harmed too much, and there was no need to protect them. With the help of Pang Jinting and the others, many people from the First Army and the Special Forces had secretly gone to Jakarta and hid there. Once there was a conflict, they would protect the local Han people. Suharto and the others never thought that the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, who had been working for them, was secretly plotting against them. There was also the operation team of Galaxy Investment. They were busy scheming against Indonesia's financial market, but they thought that this operation was only Zhou Hao's personal action and did not know that the country was involved. Even Song Jiahao, who had become Zhou Hao's trusted aide, knew nothing about this. Other than the matter in Indonesia, the domestic stock market was also as Zhou Hao had expected. The few shares that He Xiaoping had mentioned on the financial programs had indeed risen by a lot more than a week later, and the average share price had risen by 50%. He Xiaoping, who was originally a nobody in the stock market, was now completely famous. In addition to his title as the youngest professor in Beijing University, he was even more eye-catching. Many television stations were scrambling to invite him to be a guest. Zhou Hao shook his head and said, "I'm afraid there's going to be a Zhang Wubin in the financial world." In fact, there was a fundamental difference between He Xiaoping and that Zhang Wubin from Zhou Hao's previous life. After all, Zhang Wubin was just a person who did not know how to spout nonsense, while He Xiaoping had the real ability. These few days, He Xiaoping could be said to be high-spirited. Even the central TV station invited him to participate in a financial lecture, giving a speech with a few other famous financial experts in the country. During this period, He Xiaoping and those experts had many differing views. Although those experts could be called He Xiaoping seniors, although He Xiaoping had lived for more than 30 years, he still lacked experience in terms of human relations. Moreover, he also wanted to use this to increase his reputation, so he mercilessly refuted the opinions of those experts. He Xiaoping's theoretical basis was indeed very strong. Although those few financial experts were also considered professionals, they were also refuted by He Xiaoping until they were covered in cuts and bruises. Because of this, He Xiaoping's popularity became even higher, and he was respected by the shareholders. On this day, Zhou Hao came to find Yang Jiabao to have lunch, but he saw Yang Jiabao walk out of the teaching building with a depressed look on her face. "What's wrong? Who made our Yang family's young mistress angry?" Zhou Hao asked with a smile. Yang Jiabao said angrily, "Who else?" It was still that He Xiaoping. He thought he was very impressive after being on TV a few times. In the class just now, his eyes and expression were really unbearable. It was as if he was the only person in the world who knew finance. He even mocked my Ming dynasty from time to time. "I'm really pissed off." Zhou Hao laughed and said, "Who asked you to let others earn 100 million to chase you? Isn't he working hard for the goal you mentioned?" At that time, I just wanted him to back out. Who knew that he would actually make it out? Yang Jiabao was also very angry. Under the bright daylight, Yang Jiabao held Zhou Hao's arm as if there was no one else around. The boys on the school road recognized Yang Jiabao and saw her intimately holding a handsome boy's hand. Many people found it hard to believe because Yang Jiabao had not been in school for so long, and there had not been any rumors of her falling in love with anyone. There was not even any ambiguous rumors. But even though they were shocked, these boys did not dare to go forward and ask Yang Jiabao, because Yang Jiabao was not that kind of weak girl. If they annoyed her, there would be no good result. At this time, He Xiaoping's figure appeared in front of them and walked towards Zhou Hao and Yang Jiabao. Seeing He Xiaoping walking towards her, Yang Jiabao, who was still smiling, immediately turned cold. Zhou Hao, on the other hand, politely called He Xiaoping Professor He. He Xiaoping thought that it was Zhou Hao who was polite to him. He proudly answered, and he did not look at him anymore. Instead, he smiled at Yang Jiabao and said, "Jiabao, do you want to go for lunch?" Yang Jiabao snorted. "Sorry, we are in a hurry. Please move aside." "Oh, I see. Actually, I am just here to greet you guys. I am also in a hurry." He Xiaoping adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his face and smiled. "You know, I have been busy recording programs for the television stations these few days. There are also many reporters from the newspapers who want to interview me. Sigh, I'm also in a difficult position. After all, I'm still a teacher in the school. If I let reporters come in and out of this place frequently, it would still affect other students." However, there was no apologetic expression on his face. Instead, his eyes were filled with pride. Coincidentally, a few more people walked over. Two of them were carrying a camera on their shoulders. There was also a delicate and pretty woman holding a microphone. These were obviously reporters from the television station. Indeed, when He Xiaoping saw these reporters walking over, the joy in his eyes became even stronger. However, he deliberately revealed a distressed expression and said, "Aya, these reporters are really annoying. They don't even let people eat." Seeing He Xiaoping's leisurely and carefree appearance, young Jiabao really wanted to use her martial arts to teach him a lesson. "Professor He, sorry to bother you. May I ask if you can do an interview for us?" The reporters had already arrived, and the female reporter even put the microphone in front of He Xiaoping. All right, but you can't take up too much of my time." He Xiaoping pretended to be reluctant. Okay. Thank you for your cooperation, Professor He." The female reporter quickly agreed and started her interview. "Professor He, the shares you mentioned a few days ago have all risen. The increase is not small. May I ask if you have obtained some insider information, or have you deduced it based on your own analysis?" He Xiaoping adjusted his glasses and smiled. "I also want to have insider information, but I don't have any connections. Those few shares were actually analyzed by me. Actually, ordinary shareholders can also do their own analysis. It's just that the data collection and analysis work is a little complicated." Zhou Hao and young Jiabao, who were beside him, could tell that He Xiaoping was pretending to be humble. If ordinary shareholders could also analyze such precise results, then He Xiaoping, as a shareholder, would not have any value. The female reporter asked again, "Professor He, do you have any other shares to recommend to the majority of shareholders?" Then he heard He Xiaoping say the names of a few shares. "I think these shares have good potential and are worth investing in." Hearing He Xiaoping say a few shares, the reporters were very excited. When the female reporter saw Zhou Hao and young Jiabao who were about to leave, she quickly turned around and put the microphone in front of young Jiabao. "May I ask this female student, are you Professor He students? Professor He must be very popular in your academy, right? Also, what do you think about the shares Professor He proposed?" Young Jiabao was about to say something like, "I am not his student," but she was stopped by Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao smiled at the female reporter and the camera behind him. Professor He is indeed a very talented person. He Xiaoping couldn't help but smile when he heard this, even though he didn't know much about Zhou Hao. In fact, he looked down on Zhou Hao in his heart. He thought that he was much better than Zhou Hao. Young Jiabao chose Zhou Hao instead of him, because she was blind. That was why He Xiaoping was determined to prove himself in front of young Jiabao and everyone else. He wanted young Jiabao to see how much Zhou Hao was inferior to him. Now that he heard what Zhou Hao said, He Xiaoping thought that Zhou Hao was admitting defeat to him. However, he saw Zhou Hao facing the camera. He said with a smile on his face, "But I think the shares Professor He mentioned will not only fall, but also fall." When he said this, everyone including young Jiabao was stunned. The female reporter originally thought that Zhou Hao would say a few good words to support He Xiaoping, but she did not expect Zhou Hao to go against him in front of He Xiaoping. However, she was a sensitive person after all. She immediately realized the value of the news. She quickly put the microphone to Zhou Hao and asked with a smile, "This student, why do you have such a guess?" Professor He was the most famous shareholder in the country, and he had to go through a lot of data analysis to have such a result. "Student, do you know some insider information?" Zhou Hao shook his head and smiled. "No, I don't know any insider information. Actually, this is just my personal opinion. Everyone, please don't take offense. It's fine if you have heard of it. The reason why I brought up this opinion that is the opposite of Professor He's is because the Glory Academy of Peking University is pursuing the spirit of innovation and innovation. I only dared to say it because I believe that Professor He will not blame me." He Xiaoping originally heard Zhou Hao opposing him and was very angry in his heart, but now that Zhou Hao said so, it was very difficult for him to vent his anger. He could only smile at the camera and agree with Zhou Hao's words to show his poise. "We still have some matters to attend to, so we'll be leaving first. Professor He, I won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye." After saying that, Zhou Hao left with young Jiabao. The female reporter was a person who was good at reading people's expressions. She whispered to He Xiaoping, "Professor He, do you need us to cut off the camera of that classmate just now?" Although she knew Zhou Hao's words were worth broadcasting, she also knew He Xiaoping was the key person. It was not worth to offend He Xiaoping, who had a bright future, for an ordinary person like Zhou Hao. He Xiaoping thought for a moment and smiled. "No need. I am not the kind of person who does not tolerate other opinions." On the surface, he appeared magnanimous. In fact, He Xiaoping's plan was very treacherous. He wanted to let Zhou Hao's words be spread out and then wait for the few shares that he mentioned to rise. He would certainly become more and more famous. At the same time, it could reflect Zhou Hao's ignorance. He Xiaoping wanted to give Zhou Hao a hard blow in front of all the people in the country. Young Jiabao, who had walked away, also asked Zhou Hao, do you really know that those few shares will fall? Zhou Hao smiled and shook his head. I don't know, but my intuition tells me that those few shares will rise. Young Jiabao's expression changed. Will it rise? Then why did you still say that? He Xiaoping will definitely let that scene of you just now be broadcasted. When the shares rise, he will ruthlessly humiliate you. Look at his face just now. If you let him get what he wants, I don't know how he will belittle you. Zhou Hao was not as nervous as Yang Jiabao. Instead, he seemed confident. He smiled and said, even the Wall Street stock market can be played by those big capitalists. The domestic stock market. There are still so many imperfections that need to be turned upside down. It was not impossible. Furthermore, those were just a few shares. Humph, humph, humph. I said those shares will rise because I won't interfere. Seeing Zhou Hao smile, Yang Jiabao could not help but say, Zhou Hao, I only know now that you are the most insidious person. Originally, Zhou Hao wouldn't put someone like He Xiaoping in his eyes. However, He Xiaoping's unrelenting attitude towards him and Yang Jiabao had caused Zhou Hao to feel angry in his heart. Furthermore, compared to Europe and America, China's stock market was not perfect, and the order was very chaotic. For people with huge funds, controlling China's stock market was much easier than affecting Wall Street in the United States. Furthermore, this was not Zhou Hao's first time doing this. Last time, in order to deal with Liang Fengshan's Fengshan Group, Zhou Hao had used several companies that had borrowed large amounts of money from the construction bank and industrial and commercial bank. The scale of the few shares He Xiaoping mentioned this time was not as big as the companies Zhou Hao had dealt with last time. Are you really going to stop those shares? In a restaurant in Beijing, Yang Jiabao asked Zhou Hao. Of course. I didn't want to lower myself to that guy's level, but that kind of person, if I don't teach him a lesson, he will only become more serious. Zhou Hao smiled and said, especially since that guy dares to have designs on my family's treasure. He is simply courting death. Yang Jiabao revealed a sweet smile and then asked, then what do you plan to do? Of course I don't need to do it myself. If I have to do everything myself, then what do the people below want to do? Zhou Hao said, just let the professionals do it. I happen to have such people under me. This person was naturally the person in charge of the stock market when he dealt with the Fengshan Group. After the Fengshan Group was destroyed by Zhou Hao, he decided to let Qi Jiwen help him manage the Galaxy securities in the country. With the large amount of money provided by Zhou Hao, Qi Jiwen was like a fish in water in the domestic stock market. He was originally a financial talent on Wall Street in the United States. The financial laws in the United States were very strict, limiting his performance to a large extent. But now, he was like a bird flying in the sky in the country, a fish swimming in the sea. He had earned a lot of money for the Galaxy securities, and he himself was full of money. Of course, because Zhou Hao had previously instructed him, Qi Jiwen did not dare to play too big, in case he got into trouble. However, although Qi Jiwen was very happy in the domestic stock market, he was very envious of Song Jiahao who worked in Galaxy Investment. This was because Qi Jiwen also operated billions of RMB, while Song Jiahao operated in USD. After having lunch with Yang Jiabao, Zhou Hao originally wanted to bring her back to her residence to rest, because she still had lessons in the afternoon. But before they left the restaurant, Zhao Yuqin called. Xiao Hao, are you free? Come to my place. Dad has something to discuss with you. When he heard that Zhao Rixin had something to discuss with him, Zhou Hao quickly agreed. All right, I'll go over now. Yang Jiabao held Zhou Hao's hand and pouted. Where are you going? Didn't we agree to accompany him? Zhou Hao patted her hand. Be good, don't mess around. We have serious business to attend to. Yang Jiabao obediently let go of Zhou Hao when she saw that he was being serious. She was only acting spoiled to Zhou Hao. When she heard that Zhou Hao had business to attend to, she would not mess around and pester him. She said thoughtfully, then you should hurry up and go. I will go back myself. Yes. Zhou Hao nodded and left the restaurant. He drove to the Zhao family residence. The guards of the Zhao family residence had recognized Zhou Hao. They would greet him with a smile when they saw him, but the routine inspection was still necessary. Zhou Hao did not take it to heart. After the inspection, Zhou Hao entered the house and saw Zhao Rixin and Zhao Yuqin sitting in the living room watching the news. The nanny was cleaning the bowls and chopsticks, but Yan Xining was not here. Is your godmother here? Zhou Hao asked with a smile. Zhao Rixin said. She went to eat with her friends. Godfather, you were in such a hurry to find me. Did something happen in Indonesia? Zhou Hao took the hot tea from the nanny and asked Zhao Rixin. Zhao Rixin shook his head slightly. There is nothing wrong with Indonesia. You do not need to worry. I am looking for you because of another matter, Yuqin. Zhao Yuqin nodded and pressed the remote control. The scene on the television changed, and it was a video. What surprised Zhou Hao was that this video was the TV program called Finance and Economics Line that he had seen before, and the guest invited was He Xiaoping. Zhou Hao was surprised. Did He Xiaoping attract the attention of the central government? Xiao Hao, take a look at this video first. Zhao Rixin's face darkened. Zhou Hao nodded and looked at the video seriously. Judging from the date of the video, this episode of Finance Line should have been broadcasted 2 days ago. He Xiaoping had recommended those few shares in this episode of the Finance Channel. After those shares really rose up, the Finance Channel once again invited He Xiaoping to be a guest. He Xiaoping said on the show, yesterday, Finance Line invited 2 financial experts. They said in the show that in this Asian financial storm, China should not depreciate RMB to stop the expansion of this financial storm and reduce economic losses in Asia. At the same time, we should establish the image of our country. He adjusted the glasses on his face, and then the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. I think that these so-called financial experts are all soft-hearted. Last time, I said in the program that this financial storm does not have much impact on our country. That is to say, even if the impact of the financial storm spreads twice, we do not need to worry about our domestic economic decline. As for reducing the economic losses of those countries affected by the financial storm, I don't think that's necessary. Hearing He Xiaoping's words, he continued to watch. He Xiaoping said calmly, in Asia, which countries are affected by the financial storms? Japan, Korea, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia. Among so many countries, which one of them has a good attitude towards China? Why should we help them resist the financial storm? In the past, when our country was in trouble, which one of these countries had given us assistance? What about establishing a country's image? Do we have to be like those foolish dynasties in the ancient times, using a huge price to exchange for the title of Heavenly Empire? That's fishing for fame. The United States and the European countries do not want our RMB to depreciate. Why? He Xiaoping said, because in recent years, the export scale of our China has become bigger and bigger, and it has a huge impact on the markets of Europe and other countries. And if the value of RMB depreciates to a certain extent, it means that our goods will be cheaper, which will impact their market even more. Personally, I am absolutely in favor of the depreciation of the RMB, because that will make our trade more competitive. Furthermore, the United States wants to depreciate the value of USD. It is because China has a large amount of foreign reserves, most of which are US dollar. That is to say, the United States owes China a lot of money. If the US dollar depreciates, it means that our foreign reserves are worthless, and we will suffer a great loss. At this time, the female host said to He Xiaoping, Professor He, but our country seems to be partial to not depreciating RMB. If you say so now, isn't it going against our government's standpoint? He Xiaoping sneered. Does the government's standpoint have to be correct? As a qualified citizen, I personally feel that if the government is wrong, we have to boldly bring it up. Why is Wei Zheng praised in history? It is because Wei Zheng dares to speak directly to the emperor, or even to the death. I will now give the government a direct admonishment. I believe that there must be some wise men in the government. Even if my view contradicts the government will not make things difficult for me. The recording ended there. The living room was quiet. Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin did not speak. Finally, Zhao Rixin asked Zhou Hao, "What do you think?" Zhou Hao scratched his head and smiled. Actually, to a certain extent, I quite agree with this guy's point of view. Zhao Rixin did not get angry when he heard that. He only said faintly, "Not only you, but He Xiaoping's words have caused a huge reaction in the country. Many people support him." Zhou Hao was not surprised. If it was him who was still in university in his previous life, he would definitely support He Xiaoping, because his opinion represented the thoughts of a large number of people in China, especially when he no longer had to be proud of the heavens above the country. This undeserved reputation would definitely win a lot of praise. Zhou Hao had never seen this episode of Finance Line, so he did not know that He Xiaoping would make such a comment. Presumably, his name had already broken through the financial world and became a famous person in the country. Zhao Rixin said at this time, "To be honest, what this He Xiaoping said may not be entirely wrong. If I was 20 years old, I would also support him. But now it seems that, the view of a scholar, this He Xiaoping views problems too much, of course, too idealistic." Zhou Hao understood that the current He Xiaoping was, in fact, an angry youth. Furthermore, He was the kind of angry youth who acted recklessly just because of his hot blood. Although the original intention was worthy of praise, it was usually done with good intentions. In Zhou Hao's opinion, He Xiaoping's words were not purely out of patriotism. Instead, it was mostly out of goodwill. He was afraid that He Xiaoping was trying to gain more reputation for himself. Besides, He Xiaoping must have stubbornly believed that his point of view was right. Even if other people raised an objection, he would not care. Judging from He Xiaoping's actions, he was truly fishing for fame. Emotionally speaking, being angry isn't annoying, but instead makes life a little more appreciative. After all, most of the angry young people love their country. Their original intention was to change quickly because of their dissatisfaction with the current situation of society. Generally speaking, historical figures like Chairman Mao, Lenin, Napoleon, and even Hitler. What was different from ordinary people was that they changed their thoughts of wanting to change into reality and brought about changes in the entire society. However, because they were eager to change the social situation, many of the angry youths were impulsive, causing their actions to be reckless. Moreover, many of them were obsessed with their own views and did not consider the factors of reality. Now that He Xiaoping proposed to depreciate the value of the yuan, it was an act that did not consider the real factors and unilateral requests to realize one's own thoughts. That was why Zhao Rixin evaluated his opinion as a scholar's opinion. The reason why China insisted on not depreciating the value of the yuan was not only to establish the image of a large country to prevent the expansion of the financial storm, but also to completely replace the yen and become the most important currency in Asia, to become the leader of Asia's economy. He Xiaoping had also said that the U.S. government wanted to depreciate the value of the USD in order to reduce the value of China's foreign reserves. However, China insisted on not depreciating the currency because it wanted to become the leading power in Asia's economy. It wanted to expand the influence of the currency and become the currency system of the economic zone in the future, just like the euro in the future. When the influence of the yuan increased, it would naturally increase the strength to compete with the US dollar. This was the only way. China is not afraid of the threats from the US and the economic sanctions that the US has implemented over and over again. This was a long way to go, and it was a long way to go. Even when Zhou Hao was killed in his previous life, the influence of RMB in the world was still far from that of USD. But Zhou Hao believed that as long as he followed this path, RMB would definitely become an international currency like USD. Because of this, how could the current China destroy this plan for the sake of small profits? Zhao Rixin said, the two financial and economics experts that He Xiaoping criticized in Finance Line are members of our government's economic consultants. He Xiaoping is very eloquent. Even our two experts can't refute him. Zhao Yuqin also said, originally, it was not difficult to deal with He Xiaoping. But now he has become a famous person in the country and is at the top of the wave. His every move will attract attention, especially since He Xiaoping had published a thesis in Financial Economics magazine, which was an international and authoritative magazine. He had a certain degree of fame internationally. If the government really wanted to make a move on him, it would cause a lot of people to believe in him. Those people overseas who have ulterior motives will definitely say that China's financial market lacks freedom. At that time, it might affect the investment intention of foreign investors. Now we have decided that RMB will not depreciate. However, because of He Xiaoping, the popularity of the domestic people is very high. We also have to bear a lot of pressure. Zhao Rixin said, humph, humph, humph. This He Xiaoping is very smart. He knows how to make things big on purpose. This way, the government can't touch him. Even if we use the crime of breaking public security to deal with him, it will definitely cause people to criticize us, saying that we can't tolerate voices outside of the government. Moreover, if he has any problems, I'm afraid that the blame will fall on our government. Zhou Hao understood the meaning of the song and smiled. If we can't use force on this guy, we can only use soft methods. He knew that no matter what He Xiaoping said, whether it was for the country or for himself, he had already stood on the opposite side of the central government. His fate was already decided. Humph, humph, humph. This is the so-called harmony. Zhou Hao secretly laughed in his heart. However, harmony, He Xiaoping, was a true harmony. Unlike those civil grievances in his previous life, He Xiaoping was really hindering the country's policies. He violated the interests of the entire country, not the personal interests of a high official. Zhao Rixin patted Zhou Hao on the shoulder. Zhou Hao, didn't He Xiaoping recommend a few shares to the public this time? Zhou Hao was slightly shocked. The news of He Xiaoping being interviewed by reporters at Peking University had already reached Zhao Rixin's ears during the meal. It could be seen that the country's intelligence agency, they were really not to be trifled with. Zhao Rixin sneered again. We have found out. He Xiaoping had colluded with a financial group. That financial group wants to be the leader of the circle, and He Xiaoping is in charge of cheering for them. If nothing unexpected happens, those few shares will rise very soon. Seeing Zhao Rixin looking at him, Zhou Hao immediately said, Godfather, I know what to do. Zhao Rixin's meaning was very obvious. He wanted Zhou Hao to deal with He Xiaoping from the stock market. The reason why He Xiaoping could cause so many people's reactions in the country was not only because of his words, but also because of his ability to predict the stock market. As long as he could break his prophecy in the stock market, his reputation would naturally be erased. Furthermore, whether it was the government or Zhou Hao, they would definitely not show mercy. They would definitely cause He Xiaoping to lose his reputation. Because if He Xiaoping's name stinks, all of his comments would turn into bullsh*t. His influence on the issue of the depreciation of RMB would also disappear without a trace. At that time, the government will find some professionals to tell the public the meaning of not depreciating RMB, and this storm will be settled. This is the so-called direction of public opinion. Zhou Hao sneered in his heart, He Xiaoping. This time it's not just a personal grudge between you and me. I am helping the country get rid of a heretic like you for the people. Humph, I am doing this for the country and the people. Furthermore, He Xiaoping had already become the mouthpiece of those bankers. Zhou Hao did not need to be polite to him anymore. But at this time, he showed a hesitant look to Zhao Rixin. But Godfather, there is a problem. Since so many people believe in He Xiaoping now, then there will definitely be a lot of people who will listen to him and invest in those few shares. With my interference, many people will be trapped. I can't bear to see that happen. Stinking brat. You are still pretending to be good after taking advantage of me. Zhao Rixin deliberately put on a stern face. Don't think that I don't know what you are meddling in the matter between the construction bank and the industrial bank last time. Although that matter is more beneficial to the country than harmful, if old Zhu finds out that you are meddling in it. Humph, with old Zhu's temperament, even if he admires you, he would be afraid to teach you a lesson. The old Zhu that Zhao Rixin was talking about was the prime minister that he had met with Zhou Hao before. Zhou Hao knew that the prime minister's iron fist means were famous. In the last operation, there were also many shareholders who were trapped and suffered heavy losses. However, Zhou Hao did not feel guilty or guilty at all, because he knew that the stock market was a risky investment. Unless someone cheated like him, no one could guarantee a steady profit. Since he wanted to get profits, he had to be prepared to face risks at the same time. Also, because of Indonesia's plan, we have already given you 50 billion. So the funds you need this time, you can go and settle it yourself? Zhao Rixin said with a smile. Ah, it can't be, right? Then, how much money will the financial group that He Xiaoping colluded with invest? Since they wanted to deal with the financial group behind He Xiaoping, they had to invest at least the same amount as them. Currently, most of Zhou Hao's funds had already been invested in Indonesia. Therefore, there were not many that could be transferred. Zhao Rixin said, according to our estimates, it is about 3 billion renminbi. Zhou Hao thought for a while. He could still take out the money. The country had given Zhou Hao 50 billion yuan because of Indonesia's plan. Zhou Hao could not take a single cent for himself, but he still had to return the 50 billion yuan to the country. Zhou Hao could get countless benefits from it. For example, he could buy some shares of Indonesia National Oil Company with the support of the country. Even if he could not take the majority of the shares, oil was more precious than gold nowadays. In China, resources were always controlled by the country, and very few people were able to participate in private projects. But this time, due to Zhou Hao's contribution, Indonesia was not a country. Therefore, even if he took some shares, the country would still acquiesce. This time, dealing with He Xiaoping was different from what happened in Indonesia. Zhou Hao had to provide the funds himself and not let the outside world know about it. However, after this matter was settled, even if the government owed Zhou Hao a favor, and with Zhao Rixin's mediation, Zhou Hao would naturally be able to compensate from other places in the future. Besides, even without the government, Zhou Hao would still have to deal with He Xiaoping. Now, it was just a favor for the government, and it was a profit for Zhou Hao. After chatting with Zhao Rixin about some other things, he saw Yin Xining return. As soon as she entered the door, she walked straight to Zhou Hao. She looked at Zhou Hao with a serious expression, which made Zhou Hao's hair stand on end. Godmother, what's wrong? What's on my face? Yin Xining asked. Xiao Hao, were you having lunch with a girl? Zhou Hao's heart skipped a beat, but he did not deny it. He nodded and said, yes, that's my friend. Yin Xining smiled. Friend? I think it's a girlfriend. Hee, I was just having dinner with my friend, but you were focusing on that girl. How could you see us old hacks? Zhou Hao was secretly glad. I didn't expect my godmother and her friends to be there too. Luckily, I didn't do anything intimate with Jiabao, or else we would have been there. Just as Zhou Hao had expected, the recording of the interview with He Xiangping and him was broadcasted on the television that night. It was also at this moment that Zhou Hao found out that those reporters were the crew members of Finance and Economics First Online. That night, finance firm did not invite He Xiangping. Instead, it invited two other financial experts as guests. Although they did not invite He Xiangping, the theme of the program still revolved around whether or not the value of the RMB proposed by He Xiangping would depreciate. These two experts agreed with He Xiangping's view that the value of the RMB should depreciate and listed many benefits of the depreciation of the RMB. Originally, even if these two experts had the opposite attitude as He Xiangping, the people would still choose to believe He Xiangping, because He Xiangping had brought them a lot of practical benefits. Now that they agreed with He Xiangping, it made the people believe in He Xiangping even more. Others did not know, but Zhou Hao knew very well that these two experts were, in fact, like the two experts who insisted that the value of RMB did not depreciate, and then were fiercely refuted by He Xiangping. They were both economic consultants of the central government. Because Zhao Rixin and the others knew that He Xiangping was currently the general trend of public opinion, the effect of forcefully suppressing him was no longer obvious. Instead, it might even cause the people's rebellious thoughts. Instead, they decided to add fuel to the fire for He Xiangping. At that time, when Zhou Hao broke He Xiangping's language, the effect would be even better. In fact, Financial Channel 1 was a live financial program of the Central TV station. Originally, Financial Channel 1 was a recording program. When Central TV saw He Xiangping's previous stock market forecast being so effective, it caused He Xiangping and Financial Channel 1 to become very popular. Thus, in order to increase the viewership ratings, Central TV then carried out a live broadcast when they invited He Xiangping. The television station also did not expect that He Xiangping would make such an intense statement in that live broadcast. Central TV was directly under the government's jurisdiction. They naturally knew that no matter whether He Xiangping's words were right or wrong, the impact it had on the government was also indisputable. Thus, after the program was broadcast that night, the station head personally went to ask the relevant departments if they should do anything about this matter. According to what Zhao Rixin said, the government did not blame Central TV. After all, the program had already been broadcasted. If they acted rashly, it would have the opposite effect. It was also because the central government needed to create a free atmosphere in the financial investment market. So they asked Central TV to do whatever it was they were supposed to do and not have to worry about it. Zhou Hao, on the other hand, also learned from Zhao Rixin that the central government wanted to use this matter to teach Central TV a good lesson. Because Central TV relied on itself to be the leader of the domestic media, many overbearing incidents had already caused dissatisfaction from many parties. Furthermore, after the development in recent years, the domestic entertainment industry had become more and more corrupt. Central TV's internal management was also in a very bad state. Although they had not been exposed, these matters had already fallen into the eyes of the higher-ups. Furthermore, Central TV was the most authoritative television station in the country, and its credibility was very high. Once the contents of the program that it broadcasted misled the public, the impact would be even greater than that of ordinary local television stations. Take He Xiangping's matter, for example. If it wasn't for the use of Central TV, the repercussions might not have been so great. In the words of the premier, that was, it's also time to properly regulate public opinion and morality for domestic media. Since Central TV is the head of domestic media, let it be a demonstration. Zhou Hao was clear that based on the words of the premier, not long after, Central TV, including the station head, all the leaders would have to go through it ruthlessly. As for tonight, as for He Xiangping recommending a few more shares, many of the shareholders in front of the television were very excited and decided to buy them the next day. When Zhou Hao appeared on the screen and said that the shares He Xiangping recommended would fall, it caused a wave of curses from the majority of shareholders. They said that the brat with the smelly milk did not know what was good for him. He Xiangping was also watching Finance Line. When he saw Zhou Hao singing the opposite tune to him on TV, he imagined the entire country's audience scolding Zhou Hao. He smiled evilly and said, "Stinking brat, I'll let you have a taste of what it means to lose your reputation. This brat seems to be playing the opposite tune with you on purpose." A man who was about the same age as him said with a smile. This man was dressed in a suit and leather shoes. His hair was meticulously combed and looked very particular. He Xiangping turned his head and said to him, "This guy is nothing. The most important thing is our stock. Don't worry. Our boss has prepared a few billion yuan this time. He is determined to get it." The man glanced at He Xiangping. "Professor He, you don't have to worry about that. You just have to wait for the money to be distributed. But isn't your asking price a little too high? You can get 30 million just by talking. He Xiaoping smiled coldly. If I didn't talk, would there be so many people buying those stocks in the market? Tell your boss that 30 million is not a small amount. Actually, the first time He Xiaoping made a stock market prediction was because he accidentally found out that someone was taking over the market. At that time, finance firm came to find him as a guest. Originally, finance firm only wanted him to analyze the current financial storm, but he took the opportunity to say his own stock forecast. After his prediction became the truth and became completely famous, this man came to find him and proposed to cooperate with him. As for the boss behind this man, even though He Xiaoping had never met him before, he knew that it must be the banker that wanted to be the owner of the stock market and use his reputation to be the owner. He Xiaoping was a cautious person. After confirming the boss's financial ability, he finally agreed to cooperate with him and offered 30 million as a reward. The boss was also considered generous and agreed to He Xiaoping without much hesitation. In fact, the reason he took over the business was to take away the money of those shareholders who entered the market. Therefore, it was certain that the share prices would fall. He Xiaoping had also made an agreement with the boss behind the scenes. When he was almost done with the stock market, He Xiaoping said that the shares might fall, so that the shareholders could be more cautious. Then, the inevitable fall of those shares had nothing to do with him, nor did it damage his reputation. Furthermore, He Xiaoping had invested his own money in these two predictions of the stock market. Last time, based on his knowledge of the stock market, he knew that it was the experts who were in charge of the market. So, when the experts set up the stock market, he decisively withdrew and made a few million in one go. This time, he directly participated in the plan to be in charge of the market, so the profit was naturally reasonable. If there's nothing else, I'll be going back. The man said to He Xiaoping, by the way, you should be more careful in your private life. You are now famous. The boss doesn't want any scandal to be caught by the media. Your positive image is very important to our plan. He Xiaoping snorted. Don't worry. I am not that kind of person. That's for the best. The man also laughed, then left. After leaving He Xiaoping's place, the man went straight to a high-end villa area in the city center. He entered one of the villas, which was where his boss lived. However, he saw two unfamiliar cars at the entrance of the villa. When he walked into the living room, the man saw his boss. It was a man in his 40s with a mustache. His name was Cheng Qiyang, the general manager of a real estate company. And beside Cheng Qiyang, there were two other men. One of them was handsome, and most importantly, he had a familiar face. After thinking about it, the man was shocked because of that handsome young man. Wasn't he the person who had a different tune from He Xiaoping when he was watching Finance Line at He Xiaoping's place? Cheng Qiyang said to the man, Little Qian, let me introduce you. These two were Zhou Hao, Mr. Zhou and Mr. Zhou. Director Chang Huan is from the Ministry of Public Security's Department of Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau. When Chang Huan was mentioned as the director of the Department of Economic Crimes Investigation Department of the Public Security Department, Cheng Qiyang had a helpless expression on his face. This man called Xiao Qian was also very surprised. He didn't know why the director of the Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau would come looking for him. Although Cheng Qiyang was almost in charge of the stock market, it wasn't illegal. As for the financial matters of Cheng Qiyang's real estate company, although it could not be said that they were all abiding by the law, everything that needed to be arranged had already been arranged. The people from the scouting bureau should not have come looking for them. And the one who came was the director. There was also that man called Zhou Hao. Xiao Qian already knew that he definitely had a grudge with He Xiaoping, but now that he appeared here, it made Xiao Qian very puzzled. CEO Cheng, I heard that you plan to be a stockholder in the stock market. You must have a lot of money on hand recently. Chang Huan went straight to the point and smiled at Cheng Qiyang. Cheng Qiyang hurriedly smiled apologetically. Yes, I don't deserve it. It was just that he had recently partnered up with a few friends and wanted to do some investment business. Director, as far as I know, it doesn't seem to be against the law to be the owner. Chang Xiao said with a laugh, it's not against the law to be the head of a business, but Director Cheng, your matter this time is very unfavorable to the country. What do you mean by that? Cheng Qiyang felt helpless. He wondered why the head of the family was involved in the national affairs. Actually, it's also because you were careless when making friends this time. Chang Huan smiled at Cheng Qiyang and said, you know He Xiaoping, right? Him? Of course Cheng Qiyang knew him. Then, Chang Huan briefly mentioned He Xiaoping's words. There was no need to make it clear. Cheng Qiyang already knew. He Xiaoping had provoked the central government. At this moment, Cheng Qiyang felt extremely aggrieved in his heart. How could he be so unlucky? Although Cheng Qiyang was a famous tycoon in Beijing, he didn't understand the central government's position. He was also a very cautious person. He had seen He Xiaoping's talk about RMB in the finance line. At that time, he was also worried that He Xiaoping would offend the higher-ups. However, he saw that Central TV did not make any statements regarding He Xiaoping's words. As the most direct tongue of the government, Central TV represented the government's standpoint to a large extent. Therefore, after seeing that Central TV did not take any action, Cheng Qiyang felt relieved. However, he did not know that Central TV was going to clean up Central TV this time. Even though it was not against the law to be a shareholder, it was not against the law. Furthermore, Cheng Qiyang could be considered to be very open-minded in Beijing. He had a good relationship with many officials. However, he knew that even if he did a good job in the business world, once he provoked a true leader, the destruction would only happen in the blink of an eye. General, Mr. Zhou, what do you need me to do? Just tell me. I will not decline, Cheng Qiyang said decisively. He was ready to give up on his plan to take over the throne. Although he did not have billions of benefits, it was much better than going bankrupt and being imprisoned. Chang Huan also laughed. CEO Cheng, you are too polite. However, since CEO Cheng has already said so, I will not beat around the bush with you. CEO Cheng, Mr. Zhou will take over your matters in the stock market this time. Of course, since you have already invested in the funds, Mr. Zhou will compensate you handsomely. Sure enough, he wouldn't be able to succeed this time, Cheng Qiyang thought to himself. However, since he was mentally prepared, he didn't feel too uncomfortable. Instead, he warmly held Zhou Hao's hand and said with a bright smile on his face, Mr. Zhou is young and promising. I'm really envious of him. Mr. Zhou, if you need my cooperation, just say it. Zhou Hao also nodded and smiled. You are too polite, CEO Cheng. But there is really something I need your cooperation with. Go ahead, go ahead. This is what happened this time. Don't let He Xiaoping know about it. Especially this Mr. Qian. We must continue to get in touch with He Xiaoping to eliminate his suspicions. Zhou Hao glanced at little Qian. There was no need for Cheng Qiyang to say anything. Little Qian immediately nodded and agreed. He was also a smart man. His boss was so respectful to Zhou Hao, how could he possibly reject him? He also knew that He Xiaoping was finished, but he didn't have any sympathy for him. After all, he would rather die than die. Furthermore, He Xiaoping's self-righteous attitude was truly detestable. Thank you, Director Cheng. I will send someone to contact you guys in the future, Zhou Hao said to Cheng Qiyang with a smile. After that, Chang Huan took his leave at the right time. Zhou Hao had no intention of staying, so the two of them left together. After Zhou Hao and Chang Huan left, little Qian saw Cheng Qiyang and heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Qian also knew about the situation in the capital. Chang Huan, the director of the Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau, was an official with a low rank and power. As an organization that investigated, and monitored national economic crimes, Chang Huan held a lot of weight in the business world of Beijing. Naturally, Chang Huan did not have the right to manage state-owned enterprises. However, among those private enterprises, which one of them did not worship him? After all, even those large corporations with assets exceeding 10 billion could not be absolutely clean. And as long as they did not really commit a heinous crime or were exposed, Chang Huan would not hold on to these powerful big bosses and not let them go. If he really committed a heinous crime, or if he really stabbed them, then Chang Huan didn't have the strength to turn back. He could only follow the orders given by his superiors. Therefore, in Xiao Qian's opinion, Cheng Qiyang did not find it strange at all that Chang Huan was afraid of and respectful of him. However, just now, Cheng Qiyang was even more respectful towards that man called Zhou Hao than Chang Huan. Not only Cheng Qiyang, but even Chang Huan himself showed great respect to Zhou Hao. He wasn't as indifferent as he was to Cheng Qiyang. Boss, who is that Zhou Hao? According to what I know, he seems to be He Xiaoping's student, Xiao Qian said. I also saw that episode of Finance Line. Cheng Qiyang took out a cigar, and Xiao Qian immediately went up to light it for him. He took a deep breath and said, I don't know if it's He Xiaoping's student, but Zhou Hao can't be trifled with. He glanced at the puzzled Xiao Qian. Cheng Qiyang said, although you often come with me to see those big shots, you haven't seen the circle in the capital, so you don't know who that Zhou Hao is. He is Zhao Rixin's godson. Zhao Rixin? Could it be that? Of course, Xiao Qian knew who Zhao Rixin was. Although he had seen a lot of powerful people in the capital, he only knew people like Zhao Rixin in the television and newspaper. He had never even seen him in person from afar. The man from the Dong family used to be very powerful. I heard that he offended the Zhao family because of Zhou Hao. Now, He doesn't even dare to stay in the capital and hide in New Zealand. Cheng Qiang said. Little Qian knew that Cheng Qiang was talking about the only son of the Dong family, Dong Qishan. In the past, Dong Qishan was famous in the capital, but he suddenly lost the news half a year ago. Now, he knew that Cheng Qiang had gone to New Zealand. However, Xiao Qian was even more afraid of Zhou Hao now. Even Dong Qishan, the crown prince, was forced to leave the country. This wasn't something that could be done just by relying on Zhao Rixin's identity as the foster son. Then he heard Cheng Qiang say, however, this Zhou Hao doesn't seem to be domineering and unrestrained. Instead, he doesn't reveal his true identity. I've wanted to rope him in for a long time, but I haven't had the chance to do so. That He Xiangping. Cheng Qiang curled his lips. He Xiangping is finished. I had a bad feeling when I saw that episode of the First Line of Finance. As expected, they came looking for him. Forget it. Forget it. Don't say that I don't know how to save He Xiangping. Even if I had that intention, I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. As for you, you still have to continue interacting with him, so that you can cooperate with Zhou Hao and the others' plan. I understand, boss. Xiao Qian nodded. After that, Cheng Qiang was thinking about how to make good use of this opportunity to build a good relationship with Zhou Hao. Just like Cheng Qiang's original plan, those few shares had obviously risen after a few days. Of course, Cheng Qiang and the others were no longer the ones controlling them. It was Zhou Hao's operation team led by Qi Qiwen. Since He Xiangping did not know Cheng Qiang's identity to begin with, and since Xiao Qian had been in contact with him as usual, He Xiangping had no doubt about it. He was also very excited about the rise of the few shares. Firstly, these few shares had risen. While raising his reputation, it also made Zhou Hao's reaction seem stupid. Second of all, He Xiangping had invested the millions he earned from the first stock market into these few shares. The rise of the shares meant that he had earned money. After the money in the business circle ended, He Xiangping estimated that he would be able to earn 10 million to 18 million from the stock market. Adding the 30 million that they had promised before, he would have nearly 50 million, which was $500 million. So when he was teaching the marketing class, he always looked at young Jiabao with eyes full of complacency. From time to time, he would make sarcastic remarks at her. However, young Jiabao already knew that Zhou Hao was dealing with He Xiangping, so she treated him like a person who was about to die. She pitied him and did not lower herself to his level. As for young Jiabao's attitude, He Xiangping was secretly angry, but at the same time, he sneered. Jiabao, just wait and see. When I really earn 100 million, I will see how you throw yourself at me. He thought that if he really earned 100 million, young Jiabao would throw herself into his arms. In his heart, he thought that after he played with young Jiabao, he would ruthlessly abandon her so that he could vent the resentment he held in his heart. But following that, he gradually felt uneasy in his heart. Those few shares did not rise simply, but like a rocket, from the original share price of 1 renminbi to more than 20 renminbi. This share price had already exceeded the original plan by a lot. Those shareholders who heard He Xiangping's words were also very excited. They could no longer describe He Xiangping as God of Wealth. Some superstitious people even directly placed He Xiangping's brand name on the divine altar at home and offered incense to him every day. However, He Xiangping knew that the rise of those few stocks was already a little ridiculous. And now, it was already close to the time of the original plan to set up the stock market, but the stock still kept rising and stopping for a few days. He Xiangping was worried that if something really happened, he would be the first to bear the brunt of it. Not to mention the others. Even those shareholders who had suffered huge losses would probably come and tear him apart. Therefore, he immediately called Xiao Qian. What's wrong with you guys? Why did you raise the share price so high? No matter how good you guys are at raising the performance of those few shares, you can't break away from the rules. This is very dangerous. Xiao Qian secretly laughed in his heart, but he said calmly, Professor He, why are you so anxious? Don't worry, it's fine. Everything is under the control of our boss. You can wait a little longer. We are planning to increase the share price to 30 renminbi. 30 renminbi? He Xiangping could not help but scream. No, I have to make a statement immediately. If something really happens, you still have room for negotiation, but I am in trouble. No. Little Qian coldly refused. Professor He, you can't do this now. You will make us suffer a great loss. If you do that, our boss said so. You can forget about getting a single cent of the 30 million. How can you do this? We signed the contract. He Xiangping shouted into the phone. Although he didn't know who the boss behind the scenes was, to be on the safe side, He Xiangping still asked both parties to sign a contract. The other party sent a small sum of money as a representative and signed a contract with He Xiangping in his personal name. He requested that He Xiaoping be paid 30 million renminbi during the appointed period. However, Xiao Qian's sinister laughter came from the phone. He Xiaoping's heart sank when he heard it. Finally, Xiao Qian said, "I signed that contract with you in my personal name. Without the boss's permission, I don't have the ability to pay 30 million renminbi at all. You can sue me. But, we've been in the capital for so many years. We're not to be trifled with. It's not like we haven't done things like letting people die without seeing their corpses. Professor He, you are a cultured man. Do you want to fall out with us? You should weigh the pros and cons. Don't be impulsive and lose yourself." He Xiaoping, who had never come into contact with the dark side of things, couldn't help but shiver when he heard Xiao Qian say those words in a calm tone. He was a man of nature. Since he had the ability to earn money in the business, it must have something to do with the people in the underworld. If the other party were to be ruthless, he wouldn't be able to live a good life. Xiao Qian also said, "Besides, Professor He, I know you also invested in our shares. The few million you invested in the past has now risen to more than 100 million. Why don't you give me some patience? When the share price rises to $30, you will have 200 million. 200 million, Professor He. You won't be able to earn that much even if you study in Peking University for the rest of your life." The voice of the little money was full of magic. It made He Xiaoping feel like he saw piles of colorful bills. How could He Xiaoping not know that he had more than 100 million yuan in the stock market? It was because of this that he wanted Xiao Qian and the others to stop. He knew that many gamblers had won money, but because they were unwilling to leave, they ended up losing all their money. He did not want to end up like this. What he wanted was to keep his money safe. However, Xiao Qian was right. If the share price broke through $30, he would have 200 million. 200 million. Even though with the current conditions, He Xiaoping did not have to worry about his life anymore. But no one would complain about having too much money, especially when he thought that if Yang Jiabao knew that he had 200 million, she would probably cry and throw herself into his arms. When he thought about how Yang Jiabao ignored him these few days, He Xiaoping's heart was filled with anger. If he could make Yang Jiabao kneel on the ground and beg him to accept her, how satisfying would that be? Let's see if you still dare to flirt with that Zhou Hao. When I'm tired of playing with you, I'll kick you away and see if you can still be proud of yourself. He Xiaoping thought fiercely in his heart. As he imagined Yang Jiabao throwing herself into his arms, He Xiaoping's rationality was instantly drowned out. He asked Xiao Qian again, "Can you really guarantee that nothing will happen to you?" Hearing He Xiaoping's question, Xiao Qian's lips curled up, because he knew that Rabbit had already fallen into the trap. "Don't worry, Professor He, your reputation is very important to us. Even if there is no friendship between us, you are still useful to us." No? Although it was somewhat unreasonable to say that, but think about it, do you think we'll lose our jobs? He Xiaoping then gritted his teeth. "All right, I promise you." At the same time, Zhou Hao was in the room that Zhao Yuqin had booked for a long time in Wang Fujing Hotel. At the moment, he was lying comfortably on Zhao Yuqin's soft and plump thighs. Zhao Yuqin carefully peeled the grape skin and fed the grape meat into Zhou Hao's mouth. Not only did Zhou Hao eat the grape meat, but he also held Zhao Yuqin's finger. He used his teeth to lightly nibble on it, causing Zhao Yuqin to roll her eyes at him. "Hey, those few shares that He Xiaoping mentioned have already been pulled to more than 20 renminbi. Are you still not going to stop?" Zhao Yuqin took her fingers out of Zhou Hao's mouth, picked up another grape and started peeling it. "This time it is different from the last time you plotted against the Construction Bank and Construction Bank. The last few companies did not have many people paying attention to them. Even if they were tortured to death by you, they would not make a sound. But this time, because of He Xiaoping, many people have invested money. I guess many people will be imprisoned. You really have the heart." "I didn't do anything. It was all done by Qi Wan and the others." Zhou Hao had a very aggrieved look on his face. Seeing Zhao Yuqin glare at him, Zhou Hao shrugged and said, "Sister, do you know that in terms of financial management, it is neither moral nor moral? To put it bluntly, this was a kind of operation. The financial market has its own game rules. As for me, I'm only following these rules, so I don't feel guilty or responsible." This was what George Soros said after pushing the financial storm in Asia. Zhou Hao agreed with his point of view, but many shareholders invest their savings in it. Those are their blood and sweat. Zhou Hao is also a little emotional. There are risks in the financial market. If anyone can make money in it, it will become a bubble economy. It was precisely because that money was their blood and sweat that they should not easily invest in the unpredictable stock market. Based on what I said, stocks are not something that ordinary people can play with. For the current China people, I more agree that they should work on the ground and not blindly throw money into the stock market just because they want to earn big money and make quick money. In his previous life, Zhou Hao was also a very outstanding financial talent. He knew a lot about finance, but even a person like him did not dare to throw money into the stock market, let alone those rising Dou citizens who did not even understand the K-line map. People nowadays are restless. Many of them dream of getting rich overnight. Zhao Yuqin sighed. So now I am going to teach them a bloody lesson and let them wake up. Zhou Hao said. The shareholders of China believed in the so-called general trend, time and time again, and let foreign capitalists rob a large amount of wealth. This made Zhou Hao very angry. So now, before foreign capitals invaded China's financial market, Zhou Hao wanted to use this matter to let the shareholders see the financial markets crisis clearly. He did not want to rush into the stock market like he did in his previous life. Furthermore, the central government also wanted to use this matter to properly reorganize central TV and regulate the public opinion and ethics of the domestic media. Zhou Hao thought to himself that if the effect was significant, then the incident of Zhang Wubin being incited by the media due to disregarding public opinion and morality in his previous life would also be much less. Zhou Hao naturally would not be so reckless as to try to influence the entire country with his own strength, but he also wanted to do his best to seek a clear conscience. Most importantly, Zhou Hao's character was still like a businessman who could not get up early without any benefits. If it was not for the fact that he could crush He Xiangping, that fellow who did not know what was good for him, he would not have gotten up early. However, Zhou Hao would not take the initiative to take over the matter if he could gain enough benefits from this manner and make the government owe him a favor. He smiled at Zhao Yuqin and said, Sister, this is not like you. You know the rules of the market yourself. Why did you suddenly pity those shareholders? As the saying goes, rape is not forced to gamble. No one forced them to throw money into the sea. Zhao Yuqin pouted and pinched Zhou Hao's nose. You little rascal, why are you so rude? She also imagined that those shareholders would suffer heavy losses soon, so she could not bear it, and at the same time, she did not want Zhou Hao to become the kind of person who would do anything for the sake of profit. However, Zhou Hao was right. The high risk of stocks was indeed not something that the small citizens of China could casually play with. This time, it was not a bad idea to teach them a lesson. Anyway, I will only recognize him for my entire life. Whatever he wants, I will let him be. Zhao Yuqin stared at Zhou Hao's tough face. Her heart was soft. Oh right, how much did you invest this time? Zhao Yuqin asked curiously. Zhou Hao thought for a while and said, I gave Qi Qiwen more than 4 billion. I asked him to increase the share prices of a few shares as much as possible. I didn't expect him to be so capable to push the share prices to this extent. Then when do you plan to stop? I heard Qi Qiwen say that after breaking through 30 yuan, it will be about time, right? That He Xiangping seems to have thrown his money in as well. He wants to earn a good sum of money. Zhou Hao smiled and said, This time, he will lose everything. Suddenly, Zhao Yuqin pouted and said, I only have some thoughts about your Jiabao. You did not hesitate to use billions to deal with her and even pulled in many innocent citizens. You are even worse than Wu Sangui. Humph, humph, humph. In my opinion, Wu Sangui is also a realm. He was furious for the sake of the beauty and even sacrificed the entire world. Zhou Hao smiled and said, Anyway, my woman is my reverse scale. Whoever touches her will die. If it were you, sister, not to mention a few billion yuan, I would not hesitate to take out all my 10 billion yuan. There was nothing more sweet in Zhao Yuqin's heart than hearing Zhou Hao's words. She blushed and said, You are glib-tongued. Zhou Hao smiled and hooked Zhao Yuqin's neck. He made her lower her body and smiled. Sister, then you can have a taste of Zhao Hao's glib tongue. After saying that, he slightly raised his head and pressed it against Zhao Yuqin's lips. It was already early February, and the Spring Festival was getting closer and closer. The festive atmosphere in Beijing was getting more and more intense. Similar to the atmosphere of the Spring Festival, there was also the fire in the financial market. The shares that He Xiangping mentioned earlier had risen from the initial share price of 1 renminbi to the current price of 30 renminbi. It was considered a miracle in China's stock market. As for He Xiangping, he had already been called the stock god of China by many shareholders. But what was strange was that those very famous financial experts in the domestic financial world, who were originally very enthusiastic about the stock market, were now tacitly silent. On the contrary, because of He Xiangping, the viewership ratings of finance lines suddenly rose. The few experts invited all praised He Xiangping, trying their best to please him. Today was the final exam of Beijing University's Radiance Management College's finance department. And He Xiangping was also the invigilator of Yang Jiabao's marketing class. The examination venue was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. Only the sound of the brush tip rubbing against the exam paper could be heard. Compared to this quiet environment, He Xiangping's heart was not at peace. In fact, he was very excited, because he also knew that the shares of those few stocks were close to 30 yuan. The money he invested in the stock market was also like a snowball, expanding to 200 million yuan. Now, he was waiting for Xiao Qian to call him. Then, he immediately released the denomination of the shares in his hands. That 200 million would be safe in the bag. Oh right, he also had to take advantage of the fact that little Qian and the rest were not completely on the market to show his face and remind those shareholders that these shares were not stable and might fall. Then, he would be able to see the huge fall after that. Thinking about how he was going to have 200 million, He Xiangping, who was standing on the podium, could not help but look at Yang Jiabao, who was sitting in her seat and answering the papers. Seeing her serious and beautiful face, He Xiangping's entire heart warmed up. He could already imagine Yang Jiabao crying and offering herself to him, and the corner of his mouth subconsciously curled up. Ring, ring, ring. The ringing of a phone suddenly rang. Many of the students in the examination hall, who were focused on answering the questions, trembled in fear. They thought it was time to submit the papers. He Xiangping's face was somewhat hot. He hurriedly took out his handphone from his pocket and apologized to the other invigilator and other students before quickly leaving the examination hall. Originally, not to mention during the more important final exams, even if it was during normal days of classes, He Xiangping would also turn off his phone to avoid affecting his class. But now, he was in a hurry to wait for Xiao Qian's call, so he could not turn off his phone. After walking out of the examination hall, he immediately put his phone close to his ear. He said excitedly, "Is it Mr. Qian?" "He, Professor He, it seems that you are waiting very anxiously." Xiao Qian's voice came from the phone. "Mr. Qian, let's talk about other things in the future. How is the stock market?" He Xiangping was indeed very anxious. Xiao Qian smiled and said, "Look at how anxious you are. All right, all right. He, the share price has already exceeded $30. We are also preparing to place our bets. Quickly go and get some cash." With He Xiangping's self-proclaimed cultured personality, he could not help but curse. F***CKU, it's done. Then, he immediately called his brokerage and asked him to sell all his shares. The brokerage also agreed. "Mr. He, congratulations." At the end, the brokerage agent congratulated him on the phone. "Yes, thank you." He Xiangping tried his best to suppress the wild joy in his heart. Maybe he was really too excited. If it was in the past, he might have heard the brokerage manager say congratulations with a hint of schadenfreude in his tone. After hanging up the phone, He Xiangping took a deep breath. Beijing in February had a very low temperature, but He Xiangping felt that the air was very warm, and it warmed his heart. When he returned to the examination venue, the smile on his face made the other invigilator confused as well. He Xiangping also narrowed his eyes and looked at Yang Jiabao. He thought proudly in his heart, "Yang Jiabao, just cry and call me to beg me to accept you. Hee. If I don't F***CK all three of your holes, I won't be called He Xiangping." At this moment, Yang Jiabao raised her head and caught He Xiangping's lecherous gaze. If it was a normal He Xiangping, he might have restrained himself a little. At this moment, he was completely unrestrained. His eyes were recklessly fixed on Yang Jiabao's chest, as if he wanted to tear apart that layer of clothing and humiliate her. With a cold snort, Yang Jiabao packed her things and walked out with the exam papers. However, she wanted to hand in the exam papers in advance. When she came out of her seat, she did not even look at He Xiangping. With a glance, she handed the exam papers that she had answered to another invigilator, and then walked straight out of the examination venue. He Xiangping hurriedly greeted the invigilator and immediately chased after him. "Jiabao." When they walked out of the door, they saw Yang Jiabao walking to the staircase. Initially, Yang Jiabao did not want to pay attention to him, but after thinking about it, she stopped and turned around to ask, "What is it?" "There are some things I want to talk to you about." After saying that, He Xiangping did not look at Yang Jiabao and walked into the lounge by himself. Yang Jiabao revealed a cold smile and followed him in. "Jiabao, do you know that I already have 200 million yuan of assets?" He Xiangping saw Yang Jiabao enter and directly said to her, then waited for Yang Jiabao to reveal a dumbfounded expression. However, contrary to He Xiangping's expectations, Yang Jiabao's face did not change at all. She even said coldly, "So what? So what if it is?" He Xiangping smiled coldly. "Didn't you tell me that if I can earn 100 million in a year, I will be able to compete fairly with Zhou Hao? Have you forgotten all these words?" Yang Jiabao shook her head. I did not forget, but Mr. He, I think you misunderstood my meaning. At that time, I only said that you can compete fairly with Zhou Hao, but I don't think I have ever said that I would like you. You. He Xiaoping was at a loss for words for a while, and then he relaxed his expression and said, Jiabao, you? I only used less than a month to earn 200 million. You should have seen my strength. Besides, I am now the stock god of China. If I want to be famous, I need to have benefits. Do you think I am not better than that little B** starred Zhou Hao? I think you are the B** starred. Yang Jiabao narrowed her eyes and said coldly. Suddenly, she spread out her hands again. Forget it. You are already in trouble. Why should I lower myself to your level? What do you mean by in trouble? What nonsense are you spouting? He Xiaoping naturally did not understand what Yang Jiabao meant. At this moment, the sound of leather shoes stepping on the ground could be heard from the corridor outside. Then, he heard someone asking, Where is He Xiaoping? Professor He, I think he went out just now. This was the instructor who was invigilating with He Xiaoping. Hearing that someone was looking for him outside, He Xiaoping felt very puzzled. At this moment, he saw Yang Jiabao looking at him with a look of pity and ridicule. At this moment, He Xiaoping had an ominous feeling in his heart. He walked over and opened the door of the lounge. He saw a few uniformed police officers at the entrance of the examination hall. The invigilator was also there. He Xiaoping walked over himself and said to the leading policeman, I am He Xiaoping. Are you looking for me? The policeman looked He Xiaoping up and down, then took a piece of paper from his subordinate and waved it in front of He Xiaoping. Then he said with a cold expression, Mr. He Xiaoping, we are from the Ministry of Public Security's Department of Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau. We suspect that you have something to do with an insider trading case and a financial order disruption case. Please come with us. I don't know if it was intentional or not. His voice was very loud, and all the teachers and students in the examination rooms on this floor could hear him. He Xiaoping shivered when he heard that and immediately shouted, When did I get involved in insider trading? When did I break the financial order? You, don't accuse people unjustly. He Xiaoping, we didn't wrongly accuse you. Do you know how many people you have harmed? A policeman behind him said angrily, The few shares that you predicted will rise have been found out to have been raised through illegal operations. Now those companies have been investigated and have fallen. This policeman had obviously bought those few shares by himself or his family and friends. He had suffered heavy losses, so he hated He Xiaoping, the culprit. No, it's impossible. He Xiaoping subconsciously denied the police officer's words because he did not believe that it was the truth at all. It's useless to say anything now. You should cooperate with us and go back with us obediently. The leading policeman said coldly. Two policemen immediately approached and grabbed He Xiaoping, handcuffed him. He Xiaoping saw that many students had already walked out to watch. It was humiliating for him, the youngest professor of Peking University, to be handcuffed in public. I want to wear a hood. I want to wear a mask. Although he knew that even if he wore a hood, he would still be recognized, He Xiaoping still wanted to deceive himself. He did not dare to face the surrounding students and teachers. However, he heard the leading policeman laugh coldly. Sorry, we did not prepare a hood. He Xiaoping, come with us. Let's go, you liar. The policeman who hated He Xiaoping pushed him hard. This sudden turn of events made He Xiaoping, who had just been immersed in the joy of getting rich, feel the feeling of heaven and hell. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the police cars did not stop below the school building. Instead, they were placed at the entrance of Guanghua University. Therefore, if He Xiaoping wanted to get into the car, he could only walk over like this. During this period of time, he needed to walk for 15 minutes. Many teachers and students had heard about He Xiaoping being arrested by the police, so they all ran out to watch. Thus, He Xiaoping, who was handcuffed and held in the middle by two police officers, slowly walked under the strange gazes of the teachers and students in the academy. In the past, the teachers and students looked at him with admiration. But now, He Xiaoping could feel the ridicule and disdain in those gazes, and many of them were gloating over his misfortune. It was no wonder. He Xiaoping had always been aloof, always looking at others with high and mighty eyes. Now, he had encountered a situation where the wall fell and everyone pushed him. He Xiaoping finally felt what it meant to be ashamed and unwilling to see others even if he went into a hole. He Xiaoping only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible and leave everyone's sight. He felt that Yang Jiabao seemed to be in the crowd, looking at him with contempt. However, those policemen seemed to deliberately bring him to the streets. Their footsteps were very leisurely, and they did not seem to be in a hurry to bring him back. When the dean of Radiance Academy heard about He Xiaoping, he also rushed over in a hurry. After all, he had a deep love for He Xiaoping. He intended to nurture He Xiaoping as his successor. Furthermore, He Xiaoping's reputation had risen recently, and it had also caused Radiance Academy to show its face. Now that these policemen had arrested He Xiaoping in such a high-profile manner, wasn't it the same as giving Radiance Academy a fierce slap in the face? What right do you have to take away the professors of our academy? When the dean saw that He Xiaoping had been handcuffed the moment he arrived, a surge of anger immediately surged in his heart. He didn't care about anything else and interrogated these policemen. The leading police officer said unhurriedly, "Mr. Dean, we have official procedures. There is no problem at all with our law enforcement. If you have any objections, you can respond to my superior. But please move aside, or we can sue you for obstructing the law." After that, he rudely pushed the dean aside and walked forward with the pale He Xiaoping. The director shouted from behind, "I want to see your director." The officer sneered, "It's useless to talk to our director. This is a direct arrest order from the Public Security Department." When they arrived at the entrance of Radiance Academy, they saw that there were already many reporters here. He Xiaoping's face became even paler. He shouted to the officer in front of him, "Officer, quickly take me out of here. Quickly take me out of here." However, as soon as he finished speaking, those reporters had already rushed over and surrounded them. One by one, the microphones that symbolized the various television stations squeezed in front of He Xiaoping. The cameras were all aimed at He Xiaoping, and the flashlights of the cameras kept flashing. "Professor He, the few shares you predicted earlier were suspected of illegal trading and economic crimes. The share price also fell from 30 cents to 20 cents. I want to ask, do you know about the illegal trading of those shares?" The reporter asked. "I don't know." He Xiaoping's heart sank when he heard that the shares had fallen. He had just asked his brokerage to sell the shares, and now that the shares had fallen, he might not be able to make a move. The reporters did not give up on He Xiaoping's denial. They asked, "Professor He, why did these comrades from the Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau arrest you? Are you related to the deal behind the scenes?" "No, I have nothing to do with them." He Xiaoping shouted, "I went back with the police to assist in the investigation. Do you know that? I am not a criminal." "Professor He, this incident has caused many shareholders to suffer heavy losses. Do you think you are responsible for this?" He Xiaoping was stunned for a moment. His expression kept changing. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said, "I don't think I am responsible. I only said that these shares will rise, and they will also rise. However, the financial market originally had high risks. No one could predict what would happen next. Besides, I didn't force them to buy it. What responsibility do I have?" From a certain point of view, He Xiaoping's words made sense. It was their own decision for the shareholders to buy those shares. It had nothing to do with others. However, even if that was the case, the shareholders would not let He Xiaoping go so easily. On the contrary, what He Xiaoping said was irresponsible in many people's eyes. All right. We still need to bring him back to the police station. Everyone, give him some face and make way." Seeing that the reporters were almost done with their questions, the police officer made a path for He Xiaoping and pushed him into the police car. When the police car started moving, the surrounding reporters continued to take pictures. He Xiaoping also left amidst the flashes of light. He really wanted to know what was going on. He really wanted to call Xiao Qian and ask him about it. However, the police took away his phone and didn't allow him to contact the outside world. He Xiaoping wanted to ask the police, who had been very angry with him, what was the situation in the stock market like. However, after he asked the question, the policeman stared at him with hatred for a long time, making He Xiaoping feel like he was staring at a cobra. He finally looked away. Furthermore, the policeman did not say a word, so He Xiaoping did not dare to ask again. When he returned to the Department of Investigation, He Xiaoping was thrown into a room. There was no bed, table, or chair in the room, not even a toilet or light. There was an empty space of more than 10 square meters, and the only accessory in the room was the wall facing the door. There was a small window the size of a brick, and it was separated by a thick layer of glass, so the sound could not be heard. He Xiaoping stood on his tiptoes to see that there was a dull gray wall outside. He Xiaoping naturally did not have the experience of being brought into the police station, so he was very uneasy as he squatted in the corner. He was afraid that his money would be locked up. He was afraid that the matter of those few shares would make him lose his reputation. He was afraid that Xiao Qian would betray him. He was afraid that what he desired would eventually become a dream. And he was even more afraid that what he originally had would all be lost. "Let me out. I want to go out. Let me out." He suddenly jumped up and threw himself at the door. He slammed the iron door with all his strength, causing a bang-bang sound to echo in the sealed room along with his roar, lingering around. I am a professor at Peking University. I am a master's teacher at Radiance Academy. I am Stockgod from China. Let me out. After hammering the iron door for 10 minutes, the iron door finally opened. He Xiaoping subconsciously wanted to squeeze through the gap in the door, but he was kicked in the chest and sent flying back. Since he was young, he had never been attacked like this. He hugged his chest and rolled on the ground, moaning in pain. 2 policemen walked in and punched and kicked He Xiaoping, who was on the ground, while cursing. I told you to shout. I told you to shout. Why the F***ck are you so arrogant after committing a crime? Both of them were experienced. When they hit He Xiaoping, it made him wish he was dead, but at the same time, it did not cause any injuries. He Xiaoping, who had never experienced such a beating, couldn't stand the pain anymore. He put down his dignity and begged for mercy. The 2 policemen also vented their anger. In the end, they spat at He Xiaoping, closed the iron door, and left. He Xiaoping curled up on the ground. The pain all over his body made him shiver. What made him even more uncomfortable was that he, who was respected by others, had now become a prisoner and was going to be humiliated and beaten. The most important thing was that he could not know the situation outside, so he could not think of a way to deal with it. He could only increase his anxiety. It was only when night fell outside and the room was shrouded in darkness that the iron door opened again. Light came in through the door. He Xiaoping, who was still curled up on the ground, narrowed his eyes and looked over. He could only see 2 figures walking in. They grabbed his hands from his left and right and dragged him out of the room. After being beaten up and not eating or drinking for half a day, He Xiaoping felt like he was about to collapse. He saw clearly that the 2 people who dragged him away were the policemen who had beaten him up earlier. They brought He Xiaoping to a much more spacious room. There was a sofa, a coffee table, a television, and a heating system. It should be the Department of Investigation Services reception room. What shocked He Xiaoping the most was that he actually saw a person who should not have appeared here, Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao was sitting on the sofa in the reception room with his legs crossed. He looked very satisfied. When He Xiaoping was dragged in, a policewoman brought hot milk tea and exquisite cake and respectfully placed them on the coffee table in front of Zhou Hao. He Xiaoping was roughly pressed on a hard wooden chair by the 2 policemen. His hands were also tied back in the chair. He was facing Zhou Hao himself. Leave the 2 of you alone. The rest of you can go back now. Only then did He Xiaoping notice that there was a man in his 40s sitting on the sofa next to Zhou Hao. When he heard the man's words, other than the 2 police officers behind He Xiaoping, the rest of the people left the reception room and closed the door. Zhou Hao looked at He Xiaoping with a smile and said, Professor He, why are you so haggard in just a few days? He Xiaoping's chest heaved up and down violently. He took a deep breath and said weakly to Zhou Hao, What are you doing here? Zhou Hao snorted and laughed. To be honest, I am here to show off to you, Professor He. When he heard Zhou Hao say that he was here to show off his strength, He Xiaoping's heart skipped a beat, and he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Initially, he thought that he had a net worth of 200 million. This way, he would be able to snatch young Jiabao away from Zhou Hao. At that time, he would have to show off in front of Zhou Hao. Originally, he should be the one to show off in this corner. But now, not to mention showing off his power, even He Xiaoping could not protect himself. Furthermore, when he once had a net worth of 200 million, Yang Jiabao also said that she would not like him. At this time, she heard Zhou Hao smile and say, Oh right, Professor He, you still do not know about the situation outside, right? The man sitting next to Zhou Hao raised his hand. He was originally guarding behind He Xiaoping. A policeman went over and turned on the TV. The TV was playing inside. It happened to be the news broadcast of the central TV station. Today, the China Securities and Supervision Bureau confirmed that due to the major illegal actions of Yuanzhong Industrial Group and other listed companies, they have decided to remove the license plate and stop the company from going public. The dignified female host meticulously reported, all related personnel have been arrested. China's SEC, China's Silver Industrial Management Committee, and the Ministry of Public Security's Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau have all been involved in the investigation of this case. Due to this incident, many shareholders who bought these shares suffered heavy losses. Then, the camera on the television changed to the various securities companies in Beijing. Many shareholders who bought those shares were stuck there, shouting that they wanted to take back their money. They were very emotional. The reporter interviewed a short and fat middle-aged woman. She screamed and cried. That He Xiaoping who killed thousands of dollars, It was all because he said that these shares would increase by a lot that I bought them. Well, these are all the money I saved over 10 years. That He Xiaoping who killed 1,000 knives. The reporters interviewed many shareholders who had lost their money. Besides hating those few shares, the one who gritted their teeth the most was He Xiaoping. Looking at his expression, he really wanted to eat his meat and drink his blood. He Xiaoping, who was sitting in front of the TV, felt a chill run down his spine. He was so scared that he trembled. Then, the television screen returned to the female host of the news broadcast. She said, "At noon today, the director of the Ministry of Public Security's Department of Economic Crimes Investigation Bureau, Chang Huan, officially confirmed it to the outside world. The professor of the finance department of Peking University, He Xiaoping, who recommended those few shares in the program finance and economic line, was one of the main culprits of this case. He Xiaoping had also been arrested. At the same time, because of this incident, the Central Committee of China's Ministry of Public Relations has criticized me severely. I cannot provide the correct and objective direction of public opinion. Therefore, I, Zhao Huayong, will take the blame and resign." He Xiaoping stared at the television with his mouth agape. He felt as if the entire world was going to collapse. Furthermore, he also noticed that the director of the Economic and Criminal Investigation Bureau, Chang Huan, who had appeared on the television, was the man sitting next to Zhou Hao. After being stunned for a while, he suddenly wanted to jump up with a chair and throw himself at Chang Huan, but he was quickly stopped by the two policemen behind him. However, he still raised his head and shouted at Chang Huan, "What right do you have to say that I am the main criminal? You did not interrogate me according to the normal procedure. My lawyer has not defended me yet. What right do you have to convict me? I am not guilty. I am not guilty." Facing He Xiaoping's angry roar, Chang Huan's expression did not change at all. It was still the same cold and serious expression. Zhou Hao, who was standing beside him, revealed a mocking smile. It wasn't easy for the Department of Investigation to convict He Xiaoping. Furthermore, this was a direct order from the higher-ups. Chang Huan would be able to do it with ease. Although Zhou Hao was not clear about the process, he knew that it was under the circumstances where He Xiaoping did not know about it. Actually, the relevant procedures such as his confession, and even the court ruling had all been prepared, and they were all legal. It could be said that the evidence was as solid as a mountain. No one could overturn his case unless that person had the ability to go against the entire government of China and was willing to go against the government of China for He Xiaoping. "Professor He, you have also invested your money into those few shares, right?" Humph, humph, humph. "I'm afraid that they have already disappeared without a trace." Zhou Hao smiled at He Xiaoping and said, "Do you not understand why this kind of situation happened?" He Xiaoping was shocked. He raised his head and looked at Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao said, "Of course you don't know. In fact, when the share price reached 25 renminbi, they had already started placing their bets. When the share price broke past 30 renminbi, they were actually closing the deal." How do you know?" As soon as He Xiaoping asked this question, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration in his heart. He was not a fool and immediately thought of a possibility. He stared at Zhou Hao. "Could it be you?" "Impossible." "Impossible? You are just a student. How could you?" "Professor He, why do you doubt your own guess? Actually, you've already guessed it right." Zhou Hao's smile looked very evil. "Humph, humph, humph, humph. Professor He, you guessed right. I am the one who takes charge of the business." He Xiaoping trembled violently as if he had been electrocuted. He shook his head and murmured, "No. How is this possible? How is this possible?" He Xiaoping knew that this time, he needed to invest a few billion yuan. How could Zhou Hao have so much money? "Professor He, you looked down on me from the very beginning. Do you think that if you don't study abroad and get admitted to Tsinghua University or Peking University, you are inferior to me?" Zhou Hao smiled and shook his head. "I only want to say to people like you that you are too ignorant." He Xiaoping seemed to have calmed down a little. He said, "If you are the one sitting in the village, why are you still sitting here? You are the real culprit. Chang Huan, he is the main culprit. Why don't you arrest him?" Chang Huan just sneered and did not say a word. Zhou Hao was also laughing at He Xiaoping's naivety. In fact, those listed companies did not follow the law completely, but it was only a small problem. It could not be said to be a major violation of the law. However, with the cooperation of the government, it was very easy to list the crimes of these listed companies. Everything could be done internally. After Qi Yiwen and the others finished, the major illegal actions of those listed companies were exposed at the right time. China's securities regulator immediately removed their cards, causing the current situation. "Professor He, I say you were teaching and writing theses when you were free. Aren't you living a very comfortable life? Why are you hanging out with those profiteers? Zhou Hao picked up the cup of hot milk tea and took a sip. Why do you have to sacrifice your life for an impossible woman? You know, Jiabao said she wanted you to earn 100 million, but she just wanted you to back out. Who knew you were so capable that you had to go through all this trouble? Upon hearing Zhou Hao's words, He Xiaoping suddenly burst into laughter. I know, Zhou Hao. You are jealous of me. You are afraid that I will take Jiabao away from you. That is why you used such unscrupulous means to frame me. No, Zhou Hao, say something. Professor He, I really don't know if I should say that you are arrogant or that you are naive. Zhou Hao smiled coldly and said, let me tell you the truth. If I want to deal with you, you naturally won't have any ability to resist. But now, I am not dealing with you because of personal grudges. I am eradicating evil for the people. Do you know that? Your words that caused the depreciation of RMB have already caused a huge hindrance to our country's policies. Right now, it's not me who wants to deal with you, but the country who wants to punish you. You can say whatever you want, Zhou Hao. You are a great villain, and you colluded with corrupt officials to frame good and loyal people. He Xiaoping suddenly laughed out loud. I believe that history will prove my innocence in the future. In the future, my name will be passed down for generations, and you will be left behind for tens of thousands of years. Zhou Hao, just you wait and see. Hearing his words, even Chang Huan couldn't help but burst into laughter. Zhou Hao said, no wonder my godfather said that you are a stinky and stubborn stone. It's true. People like you always think that you are right. Everyone else is wrong. The true intention of the country. How can a short-sighted person like you, who only cares about small profits, understand? I know that being famous for thousands of years is the dream of you scholars. When I tell you that history has always been written by the strong, do you think your name will be remembered for thousands of years? If the future history really records this matter, then you are a criminal who blocks the development of the country, harms the interests of the people, and destroys the country and the people. Zhou Hao sneered. The one who will be left in shame for 10,000 years will be you, He Xiaoping. As for me, I represent justice. Zhou Hao could not stand He Xiaoping being so arrogant and conceited. Many people in the upper class thought that scholars were the root of the chaos in the country. Although this view was a bit biased, Zhou Hao also felt that among all the factors that could cause chaos, scholars could cause the greatest damage. It was just like many peasant revolts in history. If it was purely farmers who participated, then the influence and destructive power would be limited. But once scholars joined, the destructive power would not be mentioned in the same breath. Zhou Hao said to He Xiaoping, Professor He, this should be the last time we meet. That's all we have to say. He knew from Zhao Rixin that whether it was to calm the anger of the people or to destroy the traces, He Xiaoping would not live for long. When they left the reception room, they could still hear He Xiaoping's desperate and unwilling roars, but Zhou Hao ignored them. It was true what happened after that. Since that time at the Department of Investigation Services, Zhou Hao and Yang Jiabao had never seen He Xiaoping again. The news of He Xiaoping being sentenced to death soon appeared on the news. However, Zhou Hao knew that He Xiaoping was actually dead when the news of He Xiaoping being sentenced to death was broadcasted. Regarding He Xiaoping's crimes, the Public Security Department handled them differently from how they treated criminals. Instead, they listed all of He Xiaoping's crimes, one by one. Among them, the most eye-catching one was He Xiaoping's collusion with the criminals. He used the media to deceive the public to buy stocks and profit from it. In almost one night, He Xiaoping had turned from being respected as the stock god of China to the target of everyone's curses. The change was so huge that it made people sigh with emotion. As for the other main offenders, because He Xiaoping had attracted everyone's attention, not many people paid attention to him. They only vaguely remembered that there were a few people who were sentenced to 10 years to life imprisonment. It was worth mentioning that Radiance Academy, those old professors, old deans, and others originally wanted to use their connections to save He Xiaoping. However, after seeing that the evidence of He Xiaoping's crimes was conclusive, and that the country had dealt with him with such swift and decisive actions, coupled with the public's deep hatred for He Xiaoping, thus, the dean of Radiance Academy immediately changed his attitude and joined in the verbal attack against He Xiaoping. He even held several self-reflection meetings in the academy and held a few activities with morals as the theme to correct the school style. Even though Yang Jiabao was very displeased with He Xiaoping, seeing this situation, she could not help but sigh with emotion. Other than He Xiaoping, Central TV, which had promoted him, was also severely criticized by the Central TV's public relations department. Station head Zhao Huayong took the blame and resigned. Many of the station's leaders were screened and injected with a lot of fresh blood. After that, the Public Relations Department had even held a public opinion and moral cleansing activity in the country. It had allowed the various provinces and cities to seriously punish the public opinion and media in the various regions. It had caused the increasingly corrupt domestic media industry to become clear. Although Zhou Hao knew that it was impossible to completely wash away the media industry, at least it could make the public opinion in the country less wanton and reach a point where it was difficult to control. As for the Galaxy Television of the Northern Pole Star Media Group, due to its strict and objective style of reporting, it made the Ministry of Public Relations give a huge round of praise, causing the Galaxy Television, which was already in the limelight, to once again show its face. Zhou Hao knew that the government was repaying him, so he accepted it safely. With Zhao Yuqin and